Welcome back, everybody. It's time for our final game of the day here on Friday. We've got Hype Unit up against Gonza Tahiti. Mifflin, the middle two seeds, I should say, in North America, which should make for a pretty competitive game. We saw that second and third seeds in Europe end up standing off and taking it to 3 games. I'd expect Hype Unit and Gonza Tahiti to be fairly similar in that regard. These two rosters seem pretty close.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a very competitive set. I mean, each one of these teams has a spattering of, more veteran players that have been around the scene for a little bit and some newer players as well. I think that this should be the closest set of the day just from past history. We know that Hype Unit is very close to GTT in skill. I don't really envy the casters having to say Gon to Tahiti every single time they bring them up. Hopefully they can figure out some sort of abbreviation.
What do you mean, man? Here, as soon as someone dies on Gonza Tahiti, instead of saying dies, because, we're always looking for different ways to say the same thing. That's what casting is. You just say that they've gone to Tahiti. And then it's like, it's a nice little, you're kind of like, you're working in a team name. You're working in a pop culture reference. You're using a different sort of synonym. Like, it's good. All that is really working. So they've got some positives and some negatives. I want to start, though, by talking about Hype Unit. And then for them, by the way, the casters can say something along the lines of they're bringing the hype, though should probably
that's
stop
good
right there. Benny Q, Quig, Nehu, Layers, and Cascade. Obviously, the big names jumping off the page to me here, Benny Q and Layers, 2 guys who have been competing at this level for a while now.
Yeah, Layers in particular, I've had the privilege to play against in the past, and the dude is an absolute beast on gods like Thor, Erlang Shen, Robin. This is a guy who likes to get aggressive and play the jungle role to its fullest from minute 1. I think he's going to look for his first gank at level 3, and he won't stop until he hits level 20. Benny Q, on the other hand, I've also had the opportunity to play against a fair bit. He's a much more subdued player, but he's always that pinnacle of consistency. He's never the reason your team is going to lose a game. He doesn't really int, but he does bring just that baseline level of good to every single match, and I think it's very important to have a player like that on your squad.
On the other side, for Gonza Tahiti, Diesel, Coat Baby, Sops, Mollusk, and Mando Warrior, a team that is, again, veterans at this SCC level. You want to talk about an aggressive player, this guy on your screen, Mollusk, is one of the best. And, worth noting, it's a long time ago. I can't imagine anyone's holding a grudge this long. Not that he would, but Mollusk and Layers, a history on the Xbox side. Layers got his first spot in the SEC by replacing Mollusk on that old Aware squad. So maybe years later, it's time for Mollusk to get his revenge.
Look, they say they're probably not petty, they're probably not holding a grudge, but I mean, just anecdotally, Mollusk once, when I was on a team, DM'd my team captain and asked me to replace me with him. So I'm still holding the grudge. I imagine they're still angry at each other, and I think it's really nice to have these grudge matches coming up. I'm excited to see them play, especially considering they both have that aggressive playstyle that you already highlighted. And I think that both of them are Thor specialists, so we might see that be a very contested pick.
Man, I didn't know we were doing this desk from the closet where all the skeletons are. We're just kind of finding them here on the desk, I suppose. But I guess we'll stick with it and go to picks and bans for game number 1 between these two squads. Jungler's definitely at the top of my mind, not just because of the history, but because of the skill level of both of these two guys. Both also notably big Nemesis players. Both these guys have made a lot of their time in the competitive scene playing a lot of Nem. I imagine she'll be pretty highly prioritized, but Hype Unit immediately started off with a Sobek ban looking towards Cope, who has been really, really comfortable on that pick this year.
Yeah, Sobek is just such a strong pick in general, not only in the SEC, but also at the SPL, because he's the best of both worlds. He's got some of the best backline peel that you could ask for out of a non-Khepri/Geb pick, and he's got some phenomenal engage just because Pluck is one of the best engage tools in the game, even though it does dedicate your body a little bit. If you miss it, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. I think it's also a pretty strong flex pick, so it makes sense that we're seeing it get banned out here. And just the general pacing of bans this game has been very interesting. In the rest of the SEC/SOC today, we see them really only targeting out those absolute best picks. Yamoja, Persephone, always getting banned, trading back and forth for both teams, Ola, Freya. But now it seems like Hype Unit is going for a little bit more of a targeted approach, which is going to open themselves up to getting some pretty high priority picks for themselves.
There is the Nem ban for Hype Unit. The first 2 bans dedicated at Cope. I thought the third might be the same, but they decided to go a slightly different direction with their third ban. A bit surprised, but Nem maybe not first pick overall worthy. Enough counter picks out there to maybe dissuade you from grabbing that, but you don't want to let the enemy team get Nem plus something else. So maybe that's why Hype Unit decided to ban it away. Hercules banned by Gone to Tahiti. So all told, 4 supports off the table between these two teams, and Rom ends up being the first pick.
Yeah, that's surprising to see that Rom gets picked up first overall, especially considering Amaterasu is probably going to be the most highly valued solo laner that you could take right now that it could also flex in the jungle. Taking Rom first overall means that you really wanted that hunter, because otherwise GTT might have taken Rom themselves and you would have been able to get Cupid, which would have been just a fine trade. So if you take Amaterasu here, it would have left that open for you, but now GTT are going to take Amaterasu and Cupid if they so choose, or they could wait till that next phase of picks and see whether or not Hype Unit want to run a double hunter draft. Either way, both very strong overall picks. I imagine we see... All right, that's not exactly what I was expecting at all. That I had to take a literal double take and pause. That could be a flex. Could be Uller long lane, could be Uller mid. I'm spoiled by the SPL, man. I thought I had a hard read and I didn't.
Man, that I need someone to get that clip, Avrin, if you're listening. I just need the Windows like da-na-na-na sort of like restart sound for whatever you were talking. Saw Uller and we're like, okay, here we are. It is a hunter, but not the Cupid. No Cupid this time around alongside the Rom for Hype Unit. They go with the Nuwa in the mid lane for them pretty quickly. Nuwa, I think, by the way, Cthulhu's still open and Hype Unit going to take that, of course. Nuwa, I think, really, really underrated right now. I would say Nuwa is one of the best mages that you could be playing in mid. I think she brings a lot to the table. Where do you fall on the mid laner?
I'm not a huge fan of Nuwa in general. I think that just having conditional damage in your kit is pretty rough. The best way you can use Nuwa is get the clay soldiers to line up perfectly, send the shiny metal through, spam your ultimate every single time it comes off cooldown because you want to pad your damage, you're a Nuwa player. I think it's very hard to find the fog wall to really deal any immaculate damage in a team fight. It just seems like she's a very inconsistent pick, but she can work very well against certain drafts. If they have multiple backline divers on the enemy team, it's much easier to put yourself in a position where clay soldiers are going to get value because they're just running at you. So up against Amaterasu and Achilles, both gods are going to be trying to get barrel stuff in your face. I think Nuwa is a god that can definitely work out.
Fantastic self-peel on this character for sure, and a pretty positive matchup against Uller because if you think he's going to back stun you, you just minion, and then you have your boy eat it for you, and then you're free to go. So it's a pretty good option for you in those sorts of matchups. Ganesh and Ravin, Gone to Tahiti, decide to split the difference between the two roles that Hype Unit still likely need, that Cthulhu almost certainly going into the solo lane, we have to imagine, there for Cascade. Hunbat's banned away by Hype Unit, and then the Morrigan. So with Achilles there for Gone to Tahiti and Ama, it's tough to say exactly how they're going to put this together. Cope seems to like these really aggressive supports. I could see him piloting the Achilles in support, or I could see them putting that in the jungle and letting this Ama go to solo.
Yeah, I think I want to hold on to whether or not where these picks are going just until we see the rest of this draft iron out. I think the relative value of having Achilles into the jungle as opposed to Amaterasu support or Amaterasu solo is pretty high just because Achilles' gank potential is very good. He's got some of the best chase down of some of these warrior picks. He's got a stun to set up for his team. If you walk into a lane where someone's already been poked out, well, you've got an execute in your kit. But it's yet to be seen where GTT are going to go with it. Whereas on the other side, Hype Unit picking up the Horus from themselves very easily tells you that it's likely going to be going into the support role. Erlang Shen, very easy to dictate that it's going into the jungle. Cthulhu solo. It's a much more standard draft, whereas GTT is still keeping us on our toes.
Love the front line here for Hype Unit for sure. Cthulhu, Horus, Erlang is a lot of guaranteed setup, so those minion stuns can definitely be coming through this time around in that mid lane there for Nehu. Xing Chen, the final pick for Gone to Tahiti, so we still don't know exactly for sure, but I'd imagine... No, you know what? It's Gone to Tahiti. Mando Warrior plays on this team. It's going to be Xing Chen solo, Ama support, Achilles jungle. That's my prediction.
All right, devil's advocate, because you stole my answer, clearly looking at my sheet. Jingchen solo, Amaterasu jungle, Achilles support. I don't actually mean it, Chad. I agree with Agros. If we're both wrong, we're going down together. Either way, though, the value of both of these team comps, I think Hype Unit might have come out ahead here. Just the single target CC, the pillar of team fight pressure that is Cthulhu, Erlang Shen bringing early pressure. I think there's a lot that they can really lean on and bring themselves very well into the late game with. Whereas GTT's draft is a little bit more execution focused, especially considering it's not only going to be Thoth, who's very hard to play, but Uller as well.
Who gets the privilege of facing Baskin and the boys tomorrow in the semifinals? Hype Unit and Gone to Tahiti. Let's find out right now with Gormiser.
There we go. Hey, welcome down here. Thanks so much, Aggro, as we come forward down here. Myself and Alpha Jackal going to be guiding you through this one, the fourth and final set of the day. And it's going to be an interesting one at that. And I have to start it off with saying the desk was simultaneously both right, in the sense that if you take the two answers Aggro and Mifflin gave, you get the composition Gone to Tahiti have grabbed up. Mando taking Xingchen over there into the solo lane. But this is the one I think that's going to throw everyone for the loop. The Achilles support and Amaterasu jungle, Alpha Jackal.
I'm not completely sold on the Amaterasu jungle. This is probably one of your weird NA strats that's somehow going to massively work, and then we tried in Europe once and it completely fails. Or we fall flat on our face with it. But I can see the logic behind it. It's got good early jungle pressure, good gank potential, especially with that dazzling offensive. And Amaterasu has some insane scaling while still maintaining some good defense. So would do extremely well with the Bruiser build.
It's going to be interesting to see how it comes through because, you know, we always talk about Amaterasu specifically around her team fight. And I guess theoretically, if you're in the jungle, you're going to be in the team fights a little bit more often. So I'm excited for that level 5 mark here for River. But for Gone to Tahiti as a whole, it's going to be an interesting, everything, I guess, this game. I'm just excited to see what they're going to bring, because out of tried and true rosters, I think we have to lean a little bit more towards what we're seeing out of Hype Unit. I mean, we're used to seeing this chorus over here in support, and it's been successful even though we haven't seen it as much in Phase 2, and even now, it's getting a lot of damage there onto Cope. I mean, it just feels like this duo lane for Hype Unit's going to be hard to overcome.
It's always very difficult to overcome the god that is Horus in the laning phase, just because of the amount of single target lockdown that he brings. You have somebody like a Ram, or it would have been better if they had the Ulla, but that's something else to be desired. But just somebody who can follow up quite well from your CC chain, and all of a sudden you get level 2, you instantly force somebody to back off completely. You can force out a Relic if you manage to get into the Hunter, and it's just a one lane from that point on.
We'll have to see if they can maintain what's going on over there. Uller, you know, Mifflin had his full-on double take during picks and bans. It's not something that we've gotten to see a whole lot of throughout the year, or at least this latter half of the year, I should say. So Diesel maybe giving us a new look at something that has been tried and true for a lot of this. Nothing really bad happened to Uller, just nothing good happened to him compared to some of the other hunters, like Rom, who's now up in the top. And so there's just a lot of little points of contention, I think, across the map that are going to be interesting. I'm also surprised to see neither team, you know, specifically the one with the most warriors, well, they both have 2. I guess that doesn't work here. Either side hasn't been able to get themselves a first blood just yet. You would expect that, at least in my eyes, knowing that they're going to be aggressive. But nothing but stalemates. My eyes continue going over to that duo lane, though. It seems like Quig wants to just force something to happen. He wants the fight. Unfortunately, he's still just Horus, and he does have Benny Q, who seems to be content just farming right now, so they're letting things lay as it is.
I don't blame them for having a look for the fight. Last time these two teams met, Hype Unit did manage to get the 2-0 victory over Gone to Tahiti, but it wasn't super clean. The first game was them pretty much wiping the floor with Gone to Tahiti, but in the second game, bit of a smash and grab, so they do have mistakes. They have shown that Gone to Tahiti are competitive enough with them to make this a very interesting and well-balanced set. So why not just try and replicate that Game 1 victory that they had all those weeks ago? Just go in for the jugular right from the get-go. And you're right, I would expect First Blood to happen very quickly given these two compositions.
Well, as of now, they're still laying and wait. And so far, it's really cultivated a small lead for Hype Unit. Good farm has gotten them to about 600 gold over gone to Tahiti. A small early game advantage, but one nonetheless, and most notably there in the jungle. Layers sticked over to level 5. Doesn't have a lot of mana, so we don't expect anything big out of the Erlang Shen just yet, but it is always worth noting that that taunt is online versus Amaterasu. Not quite having that dazzling offense on the other side. So maybe slowing the roll down there for Gontu Tahiti. As I'm also curious about this duo lane. Every time we go back there, Mando is excellent at not losing lane. And that might sound like an insult, but realistically, it's a benefit here. You're up against a Cthulhu. The best thing you can do is maintain against this. And I think Wolves, especially given his history, is going to have a lot of confidence going in here. He even goes into his ult now, looking for some damage onto Mando. But he's not going to be able to get the knock up. Not confident enough to dive the tier 1. Doesn't seem like it should be a first blood, but Mando takes a couple of hits on the tail end of the fight. Looks like Wolves is finally going to back off, but it's not going to stop there. Layers getting a little too aggressive. Chase down now. River did tick over to level 5. It's going to get the two-man stun. Layers locked down, executed up by Cope, and that's going to be the rotation they needed. A shot from Sops is going to be clear. They're going to find themselves 2 in the right-hand jungle. Clean it up, no problem.
Layers just looking aggressive yet again, wanting to invade onto the back harpies. Does get them, but at what cost? Loses his own life, loses Quig's life as well. And the rotations just weren't able to be there for Hype Unit because they were in Gonto Tahiti's jungle. They weren't defending their own. They were the ones being aggressive, and they almost lose their mid laner as well. Sops playing very aggressive and getting good damage off on the start. He still makes it.
And that last little shot, you always got to account for that range that Thoth brings. And they didn't quite have it. I was going to make a remark about how if he hadn't used his ult to shotgun blast somebody 30 seconds ago, we might have seen something different. But I guess Sops didn't seem to care. And this is just something that's been going on. I noticed a lot of the highlights for Sops were games that I distinctly remember where he's playing like very much mage Chronos in the mid lane. But I feel like this Thoth fits in a little bit better. To get back to that in a second. Right now it's Mando who's in a little bit of trouble. Nice two-man ultimate, gets good peel for himself. Seems like the pathing coming out from Hype Unit isn't going to be able to chase him down. River has now joined the fight as well, and so it looks like it's going to be a big pause over there in the solo lane.
And something we haven't really pointed out yet is the fact that Riveros on this Amaterasu has gone into the Golden Blade to begin with. And I do like this build if you're going to go Amaterasu jungle. It's, you know, she does have a decent attack chain, quite fast for a warrior, and so you're just able to clear out those camps a bit quickly, especially considering your clear does take a bit of time to charge up and get off with that heavenly reflection. So why not just go for this, you know, auto-attack based build to get rid of the camps and save your abilities for the fights?
Oh, and save their abilities for the fights they will. Comes in immediately with the ult, looking to chase down Quig, but now they've separated into 2. It's whether or not you can get to Quig fast enough for the Amaterasu, but Diesel in trouble. The snipe's coming down from Benny Q, not going to be able to connect there. He barely escapes with his life, might not even. Sops goes on in, dives deep, finds the kill. Layers just as equally low as Quig. It's the race to find the kills, and it's Sops all day finding these shots, whether it's through the wall, extended with the hieroglyph. It's all going to be able to connect. And even though Quig manages to stay alive through all of that, he unfortunately loses 2 important members of his team, and now Gonto Tahiti lead 5-0.
And 4 of those kills belong to Sops in that mid lane. And Wolves just teleports him all the way back over the solo lane because he's got a problem to deal with on his own. There's blue buff being invaded. Out comes the spin to win. Still not able to secure it. Wolves still manages to steal it back away from Mando Warrior, so at least something goes right there for Hype Unit. But I don't think anything else outside of that is going their way. As I mentioned, 4-0 on the Thoth. Has a level and a half
That's
lead
good.
over Nehu. And he's going into the Doom Orb as well. He is going to swing.
And, you know, we're talking, while we're looking at leads, there's a 2-level lead there picked up for the supports. Cope definitely in the lead. And throughout all of this, I'm actually kind of surprised to see that Wolves, you know, at the end of the day, even though they've been getting aggressive, much like they're trying to aggress onto Mando Warrior right now, looks like the lockdown's going to be enough, so they do
What a lockdown
pull
chain.
one back in their favor. What I was going to say was that Wolves has been using this, you know, ult on Cthulhu that is renowned as this huge team fight ult. And instead, a little selfishly, doesn't necessarily matter for them because it hasn't been working out on Hype Unit's side. It's been working out for Gone to Tahiti. Another kill onto the mid laner. Now it's looking like a return kill maybe onto this jungle Ama. But Sobs is here, and you had mentioned it earlier, 4-0, now 5-0. I'm a little scared to try and walk forward into that.
Yeah, he couldn't let Cope Baby have that one kill there. He couldn't let him get up to 2. Just had to take it away from the execute. And now they're looking for Quig as well on that red buff. Cope going to be able to pick that one up for himself. And he thought he was, chunking you before with this aggressive warrior Tabai build that he's gone before. He's now got the red buff that Nehu should be having around his waist. And they're going to attempt this Gold Fury. And I don't think that Hype Unit can have any right to come contest this.
River, just unfortunately they're too long, didn't take a step back. I've just, based on pure memory, it looked like maybe one of his teammates was behind him, so he might not have been able to take that step backward thanks to someone on Gone to Tahiti. Unfortunate death, maybe unnecessary. They still get the Gold Fury, so I guess at the end of the day maybe it doesn't matter too much. 2,000 gold now in their favor. And that's a hefty lead for 9 minutes. I mean, I was kind of memeing on it earlier today in the first set when I was casting with Blazy, but Europe does like to take things a little slower in the Challenger circuit. North America doesn't care about timers. They want to fight whether it's beneficial or not, and I think this game has been pretty symbolic of that.
Yeah, I mean, you have a look at the European side of games. There was like 1, maybe 2 kills at this point in the second set. This second set already has 7 kills, 8 deaths if you include Riverus dying to Gold Fury at the very end of their attempt at the objective. And we're only 10 minutes into this game, so I'm expecting a lot more, especially with Lairs playing as aggressive as he is into the jungle of Gone to Tahiti.
You just blew my mind. 10 minutes into the game, 5-0-1 Thoth, looking to maybe turn it even more. A nice taunt coming in, but maybe it's not going to be enough. Cope has his dash, his ult, to get away there. So barely staying alive, but that execute now off board for Gone to Tahiti. River in an awkward spot, but not in any danger, as it seems. Wolves has been making these rotations, but has yet to really find that impact that we expect to see out of a Cthulhu. Same thing, I think, for Mando, although he has had, I think, a little more consistency and his aggression on this Xing Chen. Still, we'll have to wait and see what they're able to do when they start grouping up and making it over in time for these team fights, because right now, they're dissipating just a little too fast. In fact, Wolves doesn't even care about the team fight. He wants Mando, and he wants him now. He's chasing him into the Tier 2. It looks like Mando's going to be able to get away. Virtually no health, almost no mana. And he's going to be able to live through this one. In fact, he's not even backing, which blows my mind anywhere. I mean, Mando seems to be in danger, but I guess with that ult down, he's not worried about Wolves.
And he's also got insane regeneration because he is a Xing Chen and has HP 5 as his passive, so he's A-okay to stay out with that chalice with that healing chalice as well. He's pretty much already back up to full health. He's got the lifesteal boots to boot as well, so he's perfectly fine to stay out. Oddly enough, he's backing with 30 seconds left on his teleport, so obviously had an item finished, and it will be the Void Stone, the pickup here for Mando Warrior, and Tier 2 of the Breastplate of Valor. Meanwhile, on the other side, Wolves going straight into the Stone of Gaia. Not worried about the damage output of Mando Warrior or Riveros just yet, so instead just wants to get a bit of health and sustain.
And we'll see how that works out for him. As right now, it's once again just Lairs getting, well, just dove on. Everybody on Gone to Tahiti is going in deep. River, though, looks like he might lose his life. Instead, it's Lairs in the back. Sobs finds yet another good shot. Final Judgment still available, but will he throw it out? It does get some damage down, but right now, it's all about staying alive. The shots from Benny Q all the way from the left side going to be enough to find the kill there. So finally, reeling one back for the carry here on Hype Unit. It seems like that's all they wrote. But you're trading the 6-1 Thoth, definitely a heavy bounty. You still lose your jungler in the process. Hype Unit, they're starting to get some of these trades at least going even.
Yeah, that's a massively worthwhile trade to going into their favor, because they get about 500 gold more for the bounty onto Sobs than Tahiti did for the kill onto Lairs. Well, I suppose Tahiti don't have to worry about Lairs stealing their jungle for the next 30 seconds, as he likes to do. I don't know what it is. I just see him on the map. It's pretty much always on the opposite side of where he's supposed to be. But Sobs finally shut down, finally taken down. Unfortunately for him, did not get the dash through the glyph as he was supposed to.
Yeah, it wasn't quite the distance that he wanted. Now Benny Q,
sorry, Cope.
Definitely starting to feel himself. Although I feel like that was Cope more than Benny Q. Benny Q is reaping the benefits of the aggression from the enemy support. So good on him. And now I'm going to throw you for a curveball because we haven't talked about Nehu a lot. He's been more or less, they've been more or less on the receiving end of a lot of kills here. Well, only 2, so maybe not a ton, but hasn't necessarily had the best mid game. And I'm going to have to pause that as Diesel now getting dove on the tier 2, going to get taken down. Rivers is over here as well as Mando, so they're looking to turn some kills right back on the head of Hype Unit. Benny Q now just trying to stay alive, and he's chunking right now. You cannot let him 1v1 you. He will turn it around. The snipe's not going to be enough, and unfortunately no one to save him as he lands, so a 3-for-1 in totality. But Nehu staying alive through all that, so I can turn the conversation right back to this. Notably slow early game, and maybe even slower because he's gone Rod of Tahuti first item on this new WA.
I'm not a huge fan of Rod of Tahuti Rush unless I'm playing Zeus, because with Zeus it's hilarious to watch people insta-die to your detonate. But onto the new WA, I'm thinking I'm just going to go something completely different. Maybe something that helps me live this dive, but I don't think anything's really going to help her there. I'm partial to going in for the Soul Gem as my first item, then into a Soul Reaver, just a bit more of an even curve to help out with just getting some effects onto your ultimate.
Now we'll have to see what items he decides to go, or they decide to go from this point forward, just because survivability has been a distinct issue so far for a lot of the members of Hype Unit, but I think most specifically there in the jungle and the mid lane. Layers as well has been in a lot of trouble throughout all of this, and they're looking like they actually might want to get aggressive onto this Primal Fury. Now, of the 3, it is the one that most teams are okay with ignoring, but it doesn't seem like Mando is okay letting this one ride. He's going to run in along with his team. They're not going to be able to quite steal it, but what can they pick up afterward? Wolves is up in that Cthulhu ult, but is it going to matter? Benny Q still taken down, and now you have Rivers making it all the way to the backline alongside Sops. The damage is going to be good enough to get rid of Layers, and Wolves burned down slowly in the backline by the rest of Gone to Tahiti. Now the aggression's going to come through. Good root onto Nehu, right under this tier 1 tower. Quig as well, just trying to stay alive, wants to get the healing off, but with that death, it's going to be a deicide. Gone to Tahiti get a full wipe, even though they lose the Primal Fury, and that opens up so many options on the map for them.
Okay, so if I'm Hype Unit at this point, I'm probably already putting this game down to a big fat L, and I'm saying, let's not have Sops go 5-0 to begin with on Thoth. In fact, let's just not give him Thoth altogether, considering he's just running this game with the help of Coat Baby and Riveros. I mean, this mid 3v3 has gone perfectly for other Tahuti, whilst for Hype Unit, I honestly don't think I've seen them combined once outside of Layers and Quig just double teaming onto the other side of the map.
Not a lot of, well, realistically, big teamwork fights coming down from Hype Unit, whereas Gone to Tahiti seemed to be working more like a well-oiled machine. And I think much like what you said, you can't always come into a game, and you look at these drafts, both of them, I would say, relatively equal. In fact, I was personally leaning a little bit more towards Hype Unit's draft when we came into this. But you can't really account for Thoth going 5-0 at the beginning of a game, can you? So that changes a lot of things. 3 levels up now over his opposing mid laner. Same thing there in the jungle for River. Is 3 levels up. Granted, River's 1-1 and 8 instead of 9-1 and 6, so Sop's still definitely having the game of his life right now. It's exactly what you need in a double elim tournament. You want to stay in the top as long as you can before getting knocked down to that lower bracket. And so far, it seems to be going well for Gone to Tahiti. But now that it comes to the hard question, like you said, maybe you chalk this one up to an L if you're Hype Unit, but is there a chance, are they able to contend? How's their defense looking around towers and phoenixes? Is there a way for them to at least hold on against Gone to Tahiti to play catch-up?
The good thing for them is, despite the fact that they are 12 kills down 17 minutes in, they're only about 5,000 gold down, so it's not an insurmountable lead. If they're able to get a couple more picks, especially, eliminating Sops to begin with, the one thing they can't do is be caught out by themselves like this. Otherwise, it's just dead straight away, like Medicu's hopes and dreams there were. And the rest of Gone to Tahiti are going to be able to rush down whatever objective they want at this point. So Hype Unit, regroup, group as a 5, try and farm as a 5 if needs be, and just look for a pick like Gone to Tahiti have done the entire game.
Seems a little unfortunate to have it happen right then, of all things, but now, finally, a tier 2 tower in left lane. Looking to be in a little bit of trouble. Not falling terribly fast, but now the minions are here. I expect that to change pretty quickly. And you can see, as those backdoor protections are gone, how quickly Gone to Tahiti are going to be able to tear through some of these objectives, and leaving only 2 left standing for Hype-Unit right now. Oni Fury spawning in about a minute and a half. Fire Giants up, Pyromancer's down. So not a lot of options on the map currently, but a lot to play around. I'm just trying to figure out, what you need to do. I guess the answer really is just get to Sops, stop him from dealing damage. If he becomes 9-2-6, then it becomes a little less impressive. But I just don't know if anybody on Hype-Unit is going to be able to get back there consistently enough.
And I don't think the backline of Hype-Unit are going to have a chance to damage Sops, because Riveros on his Amaterasu's reached, I'd say, the tipping point of Amaterasu jungle, where she's at her strongest, a bit further ahead of the rest of the members of Hype-Unit, and she's able to get into the backline so freely, force out ultimates, force out relics at her will.
And definitely seems to be doing so right now, at least forcing the ult out from Wolves. Half health on the Cthulhu, trying to just retreat, it seems, at this point. Staying alive, more important than trying to get anything. Benny Q going with a strategy, split pushing throughout all this, has 2 minion waves with him, so should be able to get a tier 2. So the question is all around this Fire Giant. Gone to Tahiti right now, seem to be able to get it for free, and we'll be able to confirm it. Final Judgment, maybe not necessary, but thankful for them to make sure no one's going to be able to steal it. But they lose 2 towers in the process. Maybe not the end of the world for a team that has a 6,000 gold lead and is leading by 4 times the amount of kills the other team has. But still, it's something that you're going to be able to pull back as Hype-Unit. Those are those small little things that, if you reel them back in your favor, it at least opens up the possibility for a win.
Yeah, I mean, 7,000 gold down, 20 minutes, not exactly where you want to be, but given the way this game's gone, I think Hype-Unit would take that at this point in the game. They just have to be careful that they don't get steamrolled on these Phoenix defenses. I'd say give it the tier 2 towers. They're pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point due to the rotational power that Tahiti will have. But the Phoenix defenses, I think that's something you could have a look at doing. I mean, their comp doesn't exactly lend itself too well to Phoenix defenses. They don't have a big, easy-to-use wave clear ability. They don't have a big zoning tool available to them, like an Arpwash ult.
Well, I'm sorry about that, folks. We're back, though, either way. And Alpha Jack, we were just talking about how things, well, at this point, just couldn't seem more dire for Hype-Unit. You're looking at a team that already has a distinct lead over you, 4 times your kills, and now a full team with Fire Giant. That tower, non-existent to Gone to Tahiti. So the question is going to be the defense around the Phoenixes here for Hype-Unit. And specifically, at least in my eyes, what Cthulhu is going to be able to bring to these, because Wolves, unfortunately, hasn't had that impact you expect to see out of Cthulhu at this point.
No, they've taken the game away from the solo lane completely and just made it all about the mid, all about the duo lane, and just completely ignored the Cthulhu. One of the best ways of dealing with a problem is to just ignore it, close your eyes, and it's not there.
Well, it seems like it was working well for them there towards the end of it, and as they start to seed themselves under the Phoenix. Being able to get rid of those towers as quickly as they did is a big 4,000 gold swing in favor of Gone to Tahiti, and so now looking down at the numbers below us, they've gotten to the point where they're up, 10,000, and that is uncomfortable overall for Hype-Unit. Again, things going catastrophically wrong for them as of right now. But, I keep tracing it back, and this is probably going to be good post-game talk. I expect the desk to mention stuff like this, but at the end of the day, you can't account for Sops starting the game 5-0, and there's not a lot of ways to start reeling your mid lane back from that. And it feels like they're still having to deal with the repercussions from just a solid early game from Gone to Tahiti.
No, and they didn't exactly have the answers in their draft to him going 5-0 as well. If you had something like a Susano or a Darchi coming out from your jungle, then you would have the natural answer to a Thoth, to a Jan's towards something that's safe and long range. But you have yourself a Erlang Shen, who struggles to close the distance at times, and you have yourself a Horus. I mean, the Horus ultimate across the skies could be used aggressively to try and get into the backline instantly and force that dash out early to not allow the Erlang Shen to get into the backline to kill Sops, but you're investing so much defensive utility and setup just to kill one person. Is it really worth it at that point?
Especially considering how we've seen this ult used for Horus, where it could be a great way to engage maybe on a Fire Giant, come in and go for a steal. It has been used in the past to dive into the backline, but at that point it is something that is pretty well telegraphed, so I'll have to see whether or not they're going to go for that. Although at this point, it's starting to feel like it might be too late in the game to make a switch up like that. They're still trying to play catch up, and that's kind of where my mind keeps going. You know, we're a little over 20 minutes into the game. You are trying to hold on just to hit level 20 at this point for some of your players, let alone trying to win a fight. Phoenixes, as nice as they are as a sixth man, can only do so much to pull something back into your favor.
I said it before as well, I don't think they've got the tools available to them to defend very well on Phoenixes, although looks like I am eating my words here.
Well, it's looking good. It's 2 for 2 so far. Sop's still pulling one back in his favor. The question is if they can get more, or if they want to fall back. Sops is about half health, but it's not going to stop Mando. He is dashing in aggressively. Benny Q looks to be one hit away. The curve around from Cope, looking to try and cut him off, but they're not going to be able to catch up in time. Blink from Mando, leap 1, and shout 2. That's going to be enough to find the kill, making it 3 for 2. They still didn't get any Phoenixes. Whether or not they want to try to pressure into that territory, well, I thought was going to be a different question and a different conversation, but it seems like with just these minions behind them, 2 tanks, it's going to be enough. Sops not necessarily on a god known for their ability to shred Phoenixes, so they're still not going to be able to get this. At that point, it looks like it's going to be the call for retreat from Gon to Tahiti. It's a little bit of pressure, but no Phoenixes fall, and they lose 2 of their Fire Giant buffs.
And it's not the end of the world there for Gon to Tahiti. Yes, they did not win the fight, but they didn't lose it either. It was still more of a wash. Better for Hype Unit, obviously, than it is for Gon to Tahiti. But they still have the opportunity to get back right at them again. They could wait for the next Fire Giant to spawn before looking for the next engage. But at that point, you are allowing Hype Unit some breathing room, some time to get back into the game. So they're sort of in this awkward conundrum spot now. Do they want to aggress onto their Phoenixes again without the Fire Giant? Or do they give them that minute respite, that minute extra in this game to get closer to full build, to get closer to level 20 before starting this engagement once again?
Right now, Pyromancer is the target for Gon to Tahiti. Just waiting for themselves to get Fire Giant as it comes back relatively soon. Quig's gonna get caught out. You had mentioned this earlier, but this is not something you can afford to do. Good execute, thread the needle there from Cope. Diesel gonna be able to pick up Nehu for the 5th time this game. That's a death onto the mid laner. 6 there in the jungle. Layer pulls back 1 this time around.
And that's game.
Unfortunately, it costs him literally everyone around him. It looks like it should be game. They're going to be able to get those minions in mid. I mean, you know, I don't want to call it too soon, but 1 man versus 4 tends to lean towards the 4 as Gon to Tahiti are going to go ahead and march through this middle Phoenix. It looks like right on into the Titan, right through layers, and right to their first win.
Yeah, he's going to have to pull out something magical here as Lairs, but it's gone off to the worst start possible as he gets rooted instantly. Backup has arrived from the Quig, 8 seconds for Nehu, and I think they want to try and end before Niwa has a chance to spawn. Yeah. Man Warrior does fall thanks to the Titan, but 24 minutes, 40 seconds, 24 kills on the board. Gon to Tahiti just decimate Hype Unit.
Yeah, 11, 1, and 7 there for your mid laner. When your Thoth is going anything near that, then you're having a good game, and you should be pretty comfortable coasting through all of that. I mean, starting from a really good early game, we were kind of questioning the Amaterasu, but at least for the entirety of the game, Alpha Jackal, I'd say it worked out pretty well. But we'll get more on that once we're back here in just a second as we go to a quick break, and then we'll be back with game number 2.
a very, very convincing win for Gone to Tahiti in game number 1, and it was the SOP show. The Thoth absolutely popping off in game number 1. And Mifflin, I want to start our death segment by being the bigger man. You were right on your guess on where those gods were going to go. Thank you for teaching me something during the Picks and Bans segment, and I hope you will continue to do so.
Look, man, I can only lead you to water. I can't force you to drink. I'm glad that you were the bigger man today, but we should talk about Sops and the boys, because that's really where it all starts off. This Thoth, man, he looks phenomenal on the pick. He rotates out of the jungle. Your face is... he makes early
Keep
plays.
Don't let me stop you. Uh-huh.
Yeah, this Thoth pick, really good. And that's it. He hit abilities, and they did a lot of damage from a far range.
Wow, that's why we pay you the big gems. Sops absolutely crushed in this one, but it wasn't just him. Riveros, a.k.a. Mollusk, the artist formerly known as, I suppose, also had a fantastic game on this Ama jungle. Really felt like Hype Unit was behind the 8 ball pretty early on. Benny Q had some good rotation, some good snipes, but ultimately was not enough. Cope was also an absolute nightmare in this game for Nehu. Cope had Nehu dead to rights there. Sops was just the one to secure it. It was really just all coming up Gone to Tahiti in this one.
Yeah, I'm glad that you highlight Cope, because he was playing a very integral role, just making sure that the backline was never allowed to play. This Achilles operated as just a jungler should, absolutely bodying the mid lane from minute 0. He was playing there at level 3, he was there at level 4. We were talking to Dave backstage once Cope moved in and killed Nehu for maybe the 6th time, and he said, wow, that shouldn't be allowed. That's not fair. He's just decimating this guy, and he was right. That's exactly what Cope did. He decimated that guy.
Shouldn't be allowed. I agree, Dave. There should be a XP cap on supports. They shouldn't be allowed to get too close to the mid laner, because games like that happen, where Nehu feels pretty inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. The right side of the map for Hype Unit, not enough to bring them back into this one. So now I think when you get beat that soundly, particularly by a pick like Thoth that you really don't want to have to first ban, it puts you in an awkward spot. But it is worth noting that Hype Unit had a lot of those off bans in game number 1. The Sobek ban by them, the Kuzenbo. Those are picks that I think you can afford to leave open if you want to ban something like the Thoth.
Yeah, I think so. If you're already shown the propensity to go for the targeted bans, might as well continually go with it. Switch up your targets a little bit. We can't let Sops get off to a game like that again. Just for a word of clarification for the people at home, Riveros is Mollusk. That is a name change. He's just decided that he wanted to rebrand going into the big LAN of the year. So there's that. Don't worry about your jungler. It's still the same guy, still bringing that same pressure, and that's still the same grudge match that we brought up earlier with Layers. I'm surprised that we saw neither one of them go toward their more traditional picks inside of those high-pressure, semi-global ultimates like Thor, like Ratatasker, but I imagine we'll see them go to it now, especially Layers after that game.
Certainly could be the case. Let's go to Picks and Bans for game number 2 and find out if that's what Layers wants to do. Mollusk Riveros has played an awful lot of that Amaterasu jungle during the time of Golden Blade. Golden Blade a lot worse than it used to be, but probably should have been a little bit more ready for it, both us on the desk and the boys of Hype Unit, because that's a pick that he seems to like. As Hype Unit once again in that first pick position, and once again decide to take the Sobek away. Now it's, do they want to go back to the Kuzenbo ban, or do they want to try and take that Thoth out of Sops' hands? Seems like they're sticking with their cards. Do you feel like it was a Thoth exclusive game there for Sops, or maybe it was a little bit of the Nuwa play by Nehu that the Hype Unit should be looking to change?
Nehu being an absolute non-factor in the game probably didn't help out stopping Sops from getting those rotations, but I think a lot of the kills that we saw him get in the early game were Thoth exclusive. It was ultimates through the wall in the enemy duo lanes tier 2. It was the ability to poke from a range and just clean up kills that truthfully weren't his. Cope's slash line could have been way better if Sops was playing a different character. I think that a lot of it is allowed to the fact that he's just an incredibly safe pick. Those dashes are so long range. It didn't seem like Hype Unit really had a grasp on how to deal with that either. If I'm Hype Unit there, I'm addressing the Thoth every single day of the week just because it seems like they really didn't have an answer.
They don't do it in the ban segment, though they can, of course, do it in the picks if they so choose. Can't imagine it would be a first pick option for them in this game, as bans are entirely the same. And at this point, last game, they picked Rom first overall, and they will do the same, leaving open that Cthulhu. But hey, Gonzo Tahiti didn't pick it last game. Maybe they'll do the same here.
Yeah. I'm not going to get tricked this time, Aggro. I was going to predict again that they likely go to the Cupid here just to get it for themselves. It's going to be an Uller pick. I can see it in my mind's eye right now. We're going with it. Imagine, or even a Heimdall. But Amaterasu makes perfect sense. You can flex it to the solo. You can flex it in the jungle like we saw last game. It's not going to be Cupid aggro. Keep it down over there. It's going to be the Uller. It might not even be a Hunter in general. We don't know. But I like this Amaterasu pick not only to strip it away from hype unit. Please uncross your fingers. I like it that it's just a strong pick in of itself. You got to stop rooting for it, man. I'm trying to do some analysis over here. Amaterasu has a defensive throw gun.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
No. It's production.
Good.
They're messing with us.
No. They would never do anything like that. This is good work. Okay. Now production. Lock it in.
Lock it in. Let's go. Yeah.
Sure, man.
Uller's real good. Yeah, it's really good. It should have been a Cupid. You're right, Aggro. It should have absolutely been the Cupid.
Big mood right now by Mackenzie. That is a big mood going on back there. Yeah, she gets it. She gets it for sure. Hype unit in this spot last game took Cthulhu in this exact spot. The Erlong Shen, they got very late in the draft, decided not to go back to the Cthulhu right away, though they still have the option, and instead lock in that Erlong 4 layers. I'm surprised that he's willing to pick it up this early when that last game, not necessarily a struggle because of the Erlong Shen, but expected them to pick up a little bit something different, and they do at least go a different direction to the mid lane and pick up that Discordia.
And there's going to be a lot more synergy there this time. The aggressive play that we expect to see from Erlong Shen. Yeah, now you've got Strife to follow it up, Unruly Magic, even a Golden Apple to make sure that if GTT does decide to go towards Thoth, now she's going to be crippled. You just got a much better kill potential in that lane. It seems to me like Layers is going to try and be in mid a little bit more proactively, make sure that Nehu gets off to a better start. I like this pick a lot more.
And you've got that Discordia passive that's going to help out that Erlong Shen as well. So I agree. I like that pick quite a bit in comparison to the Nuwa, though. Not letting one game deter me, man. Nuwa, sleeper OP. You heard it here first. Xing Chen, again, the lock-in by Gonzo Tahiti. And again, I am almost certain this is going over to Mando Warrior in that solo lane. The man, despite having Warrior in his name, detests them. Really does. And is instead a big fan of the Guardians. And for what it's worth, the Xing Chen against Erlong Shen, a lot of Erlong's damage coming out of auto attacks. Furious Roar decreasing the damage of auto attacks. The thing that makes a pretty good counter pick.
Yeah, it's also going to be good into that Rom, who's going to be using that stim to make sure that those auto attacks are going to be much more impactful. I think the value of having a Guardian in solo is that you can assure A, it's not going to lose lane. It won't win lane. I'm not even going to pretend like it's going to win lane, especially as Xing Shen, but it certainly won't lose lane. It shouldn't lose the tower. He should be able to sit over there, make sure he gets farmed up, get really tanky, so once we do see him start to rotate out, work his way into Gold Fury, or even a Fire Giant if he waits 30 minutes to rotate out, like certain Xing Shen solos I've had the pleasure to experience in the past, he will be an incredibly annoying factor in these team fights. The backline disruption, huge CC from the washing machine ultimate. As you said earlier, Erlang Shen auto attacks as well as Rom going to be a lot weaker. Xing Shen's a pretty strong pick, but it might not be going to solo. It's an Odin, but we've been tricked before. GTT's nuts.
No way. That is Mando's Xing Chen. No way. I'm glad that DeWorst gave you his list of points that you needed to say about Xing Chen solo that were all nice so that you could make up for you saying it was bad earlier on. So I'm glad you guys got on the same page there. Odin, almost certainly there for Cope. A little surprised they don't pick the Odin very last. I mean, I guess they really want to let Sops counterpick with how strong he was. By the way, no Thoth ban by Hype Unit, worth noting. But Odin is so much better whenever you kind of spring it on the enemy team, right? You kind of surprise them with that cage. Hype Unit now with perfect information against that. Go Cucullin, and now a Willix
and the best
as a counter pick in the one of the best counter picks in the whole game. Erlong Shen was the bait, so now it's Erlong support most likely with Cucullin solo and a Willix jungle.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree with that completely. That seems like it's going to be the draft. I don't like taking your Odin there. I mean, you already highlighted why you would want to bring it last. You might have even been able to trick Hype Unit into going another pick that just straight up doesn't have a leap. But now Kakalin, a Willix, Discordia, all going to be able to very easily escape the cage, which is going to isolate Rom and Erlang Shen, which could be a double-pronged sword, right? If no one has a leap, you're more likely to pick up a Phantom, but if only 2 people get stuck in the cage, you might just be willing to leave them there and fight around it. This Kronos pick coming up last overall, having Sops be so impactful in the early game of last match, and now relegating him to a god that's only going to be impactful post 20 minutes is a little bit of an interesting choice to me, but they have a draft that should work around it. It's a very king protection-y comp. Odin, Jingshen, Amaterasu, all going to be able to peel around this Kronos once they get to late game and allow him to be an absolute chainsaw. But I still think taking off one of your most impactful players from the early game could be a bit of a questionable decision.
I agree. Kronos, I just don't think he's that good. Like, he just doesn't do that much in comparison to other gods right now. But, that being said, Sops has shown a ton of times that he's super comfortable on this character and has carried plenty of games on it. And certainly after his last performance, hard to root against him in this one. Gone to Tahiti looking for the 2-0 over Hype Unit. Let's see if they can do it.
That's right, Aggro. You saying that gave me some flashbacks to the last time that me and you were casting. And Sops was pulling out this Kronos, and he went for a very similar build. No Ring of Hecate, didn't go pretty much any of the attack speed items, Alpha Jackal. And that's the thing that really does shift this Kronos into the territory of unknown for me, because you don't really get to see him not as a magical carry a lot of the time, let alone going to the mid lane, let alone skipping all the items that you're used to seeing on him. But we've already seen everything around him work out pretty well. The Amaterasu, the Xingshin, and this Uller just had a very successful game number 1. Adding 2 new things to the mix that aren't really that new for Gone to Tahiti seems like it should work.
It should work, but as Aggro pointed out, as Mifflin said, I don't think Kronos is good right now. I honestly think that since the Ring of Hecate nerfs, I think since a couple of targeted nerfs to Kronos as well, he's just fallen down. Especially if you're trying to put him into the mid lane, he doesn't give that great pressure. His level 1's probably one of the weakest level 1s out of any mid laner in the game. You have to get him online, and I would keep the hot hand fed. I would have given him something extremely early, like a Raijin or a Merlin, just to keep the pressure going, to keep that feel-good factor going. But instead, the Kronos, it's got to be Sop saying, no, I want Kronos here, let me play the Kronos, and he's probably going to die for that.
It's definitely low right now, but not enough available for layers, whether it's cooldowns, what have you, to find the kill, and instead some of the damage is getting turned around onto the jungler for Hype Unit. Looks like it's going to be able to even find First Blood River. Finds that one, Sops with a huge amount of damage turnaround. I mean, that's insane to see it go down that way. Sops was 1 hit from dead just seconds ago.
And that's just Les unfortunately missing the feather step. It just does it on the minion instead of onto Sops. Sops would have got rooted, hit by Nehu's abilities, and that was just going to be First Blood the way of Hype Unit. But instead, one little misplay, and all of a sudden Les is the one getting First Blood. It's just absolutely obliterated by Riveros's damage on the Amaterasu. I mean, it shouldn't have been a surprise by how much damage he did. It was just all of a sudden how much health he lost.
Now Amaterasu, not a full level ahead, but about half a level ahead of this Wheelish. So maybe slowing her down just enough. But it is actually this duo lane that was a topic of discussion for picks and bans. I thought Layers was going to decide to peek over here and make this even more relevant, but unfortunately he just backs off. So instead, I'm left to talk to them about them on our own here. As we go to highlight this Odin, one of the biggest pickups in support for, 3 weeks at the very beginning of the year, and then he just kind of disappeared slowly throughout the next few months. First time we've gotten to see him in a while, and now it looks like he's not even going to be able to help defend a purple buff. What do you expect to see out of Cope here?
I expect to see quite a bit of aggression in the early game. The cage, especially, is going to be quite useful until, Benny Q gets a lot of attack speed online. Because don't forget, if he's using his Astral Arrows, that means he's going to be able to take off 2 points of health from each wall of the cage, rather than just the one. So it's going to be very easy for Rom to just chew through it. Quig and Layers might build into a tiny bit of attack speed. Quig wouldn't be surprised to get some attack speed boots or goes into a Shogun's. the cages are going to last long in the late game. So in the mid game, I'm expecting quite a few cages around the mid lane, around Wolves, around Quig, around Nehu to force out the leap. And then when it comes to the late game, just using that steroid of attack speed instead of using it as a stun.
Well, it doesn't seem like Hype Unit learned their lesson from last game. Mando on Xing Chen isn't necessarily unkillable, but he seems to be ungankable for the most part. Is not too worried over here in the solo lane in terms of his survivability. If you can put up that kind of performance against a Cthulhu, you can do it against a Cucullin. And so I think he's going to be just fine hanging out over here by his lonesome. It is always this Amaterasu getting aggressive, peeking around, looking for red buffs, purple buffs, any sort of invade. It seems like they've decided red buff is going to be the call, whether or not they want to try to steal it away. The answer is going to be no. If they wanted it, they were a little too slow on the draw, but now they're in perfect position to try and collapse in on Benny Q. Bead's still available for the ROM, and the roll is going to be enough. So nothing big going to be coming out of Gone to Tahiti, spending so much time in the jungle. Well, hold that. Riveros comes right back in immediately. Looks for the stun. Gets Quig. Now looking to lock down Benny Q. Benny Q gets a lot of damage onto Diesel, but not enough to find the kill. A Wheelish comes in and locks down Cope. So that's going to be one pickup there, too, for the jungler. A much better start to the game this time for Layers.
Huge rotation from Layers. I don't think it was necessary to get the kills, but the perfect time for him just to accelerate those kills and get them off the board as quickly as possible. And all credit to Benny EQ as well for surviving as long as he did. Didn't panic and used his beads early on, waited for the perfect opportunity to use his beads and to use his ultimate. All of a sudden, it's just a complete turnaround, and Hype Unit find themselves in the lead in terms of kills and gold for the first time this set.
Now, kind of sitting in the driver's seat. It's a rare look for them, for Hype Unit as of right now. Not something we got to see during the last game. We'll see if they can hold on to it more so for the rest of this one. Mainly, I'm going to continue looking towards that mid lane. I think the jungle is so far more impactful from Layers, but it is going to be Discordia, Nehu, what they can do. That Nuwa, I don't think we got to mention it in a relatively positive light last game, so maybe this Discordia bringing something different. But also watching Sops, because as time goes on, Kronos gets better. It's, literally built into his passive. I don't think you could get much more straight shooter than that. So, I mean, he will be more powerful if this game goes a little over 20 minutes. But it's making that impact that he had on Thoth that's just going to be rare to have happen.
Yeah, I don't think anything screams, I am a late game hyper carry, please don't really try to do anything with me until super late game, then I get full power of 50 minutes.
Oh, now it's going to be Quig once again in trouble, locked down this time by Sops. Snipes going to be coming down from Benny Q, hits one, but doesn't get the third. So Riveros going to be able to walk away from this one, barely, but still alive. And so they just return things to equality in terms of kills, but not in terms of the gold feed. And that's where things are going to start falling apart for them, just all around right now. Gold Fury still available as a target, but neither team has been in a good position to get aggressive and maybe open up that avenue of conversation just yet.
No, but so far I would say it's gone according to plan out for Hype Unit. It's not run away from them like the last game did, even though it's very similar to after Gone to Tahiti. I think the removal of the Achilles from Cope has been a pivotal point at this game. And the fact that they went for the Kronos rather than for the Thoth, I mean, both those picks seem to have just put them into a position where they're not as aggressive as they were last game. They haven't got the immediate pressure that they did in the last game. And Hype Unit are playing extremely well off of that and have put themselves into a position where they're the ones that I feel like are starting to gain a bit more control.
And it's so weird, right, to say that the team that has Odin now is the team that's not getting the early game pressure. It almost goes against what you expect out of him. So maybe not the way Cope wanted to start this off. I mean, I come into this thinking, you had mentioned it. Cage is probably going to be pretty decent until attack speed's online for ROM. That stun should be impactful. But so far, we haven't seen anything really happening in that duo lane that is just driven by this Odin. There's been a lot of fights that have popped off over there. Almost all of the kills, if not all of the kills, have happened on that side of the map. But none have really been driven by Cope just yet. Is there anything outside of just stunning people? Can he get back into this game at this point?
I'd say the getting back into the early game is going to be very difficult for team fights with the Ulla and the Cronus at the same time. That's where you're going to be seeing a lot more of a success here for Cope, because he's got that attack speed stim on that Gunga's might throw on that very first shot. So look for them to just decimate these objectives, especially with the Amaterasu providing even more buffs to the auto attackers. If they left alone with the Gold Fury for 5 seconds, Fire Giant alone for 6, 7, maybe even 8 seconds, they're just going to be gone. So Hypeen have to be really careful around those, sort of warding patterns.
In the back can't handle the action North America is giving us. It's causing fires all over the place, so we'll be right back as we get things sorted out, and then we'll resume game number 2. All right, well, thank you so much for bearing with us as we get back into game number 2. For the recap, it's 2-2, although right now it looks like they're trying to make it 3-2 here. Diesel, a good little sequence right there, but the aggression instead is in the jungle. Action popping off immediately as they go on in, but it's not enough to get rid of River. Even the spectator wanted to think he was dead, but it wasn't enough to be able to lock him down. Now Layers is the return kill. Cope low himself. Going to be the rewind from Sops, though. They trade out the support for jungler right now. It's whether or not they can make that worthwhile, because it looks like Nehu might be the next on the chopping block. Sops has no mana. Stops for the taunt in the middle of all this. I recognize you might go down, but it seems like Sops is going to be able to clean that one up. And Alpha Jackal, here I was trying to get in to have a conversation. Of course, we're not allowed to. 7 minutes, 7 kills, read the board.
No, we're just not allowed to talk about anything interesting. We just have to commentate on action, action, and more action. It's bloodshed. More blood for the Blood God and skulls for the Skull Throne. And I'm all for it.
Well, they seem happy so far on the side of gone to Tahiti, of all things. We were talking about it. Now seems the best time. We've gone in. The desk had mentioned it. And you had mentioned it, and I want to say I threw my hat in with Sops just because I've seen him take this Cronus pick into the mid, build nothing like you would expect, and have it work out for him. But there's still always a lot of doubt written off on an early game Cronus. It's not supposed to work, but he's 2-0-2, and maybe it's not 5-0 like game number 1, but that's still a good start for the mid laner here for Gone to Tahiti.
It's still like the start you want to have on your mid lane, especially considering he is ahead of Nehu by a level and a half, like he was in the last game. They're able to play aggressively into the jungle, steal away the Alpha Harpy. We're in position to avail to the rep buff, but didn't feel exactly confident about it, given that Benny Q is a bit of a monstrosity over here on this left-hand side. You saw him as we came back into this game just rolling aggressively at Diesel with this level and a half lead that he also has. And that could be a problem here for Gods Tahiti. If they're looking to close this set out 2-0, they need to put Benny Q a bit down.
It's going to be difficult to lock him down. Beads are still up, and he's been rolling away from a lot of these. Even the ganks that have been quote-unquote successful over there have resulted in him getting a lot of damage in return. Right now, the Wolves, the one in a little bit of trouble. A little bit, making a lot of trouble. 3 members rotate in to collapse in on the solo laner. Maybe getting a little too aggressive on that side of the jungle. And now River is going to be able to go forward, steal some experience away. It doesn't look like Hype Unit have anything to do in terms of retaliation. Gold, maybe 200, 300 max in favor of Gone to Tahiti. So fluctuating wave to wave, nothing distinct. And personally, I'm still waiting to see Cope make a big impact. Right now, it's unfortunately not able to find the kill onto Benny Q, but the aggression on the duo lane is what I wanted to see to begin with.
He wasn't able to get the gauge off correctly onto Benny Q. Layers gets a good engage onto River Ostia, and that should be all she wrote for the jungler. Layers picks up kill number 4 here for Hype Unit, as he puts themselves back into a gold lead. Only just, though. It's still going according to plan for Hype Unit. I think they're in a good position where they kind of want to be.
Yeah, everything seems to be relaxed. Again, Benny Q staying alive. Layers is positive as of right now. Last game there was a point where he was, I think, 4-6 or 4-7 around the end of the game. So now being able to just maintain is going to be good. And this Wheelish, is mentioned on the desk, but a good counter pick into a lot of what Gantati has. So already maybe giving them some power in that. This ult has just been, well, invaluable for them so far. I expect to continue seeing more out of that. 2 levels up right now, maybe a level and a half realistically, but as it reads, 11-9 in favor of Layers there. I mean, just keeping ahead of this Amaterasu, so far River hasn't really had the same impact we got to see last game.
No, and he's going for the same build that he did have in that last game as well. The Golden Blade going into the Stone Cutting Sword next, just to be as annoying as possible. Did eventually go into a Frostbound Hammer as well. Then he's going to eat an Axe to the face, eat pretty much all his health, but not quite all of it. Rotations coming in from the rest of the team, including layers, just to try and stop the rotations from Gods Tahiti to capitalize on the play that Diesel just made. And the dual lane, yet again, bit of a congregation going here on this left-hand side, as Stops makes his way into the jungle as well.
Well, it's a dance around the Fury. Gold Fury, half health and dropping fast right now. It's going to be up to Quig, whether or not he can get in. Stun locks too much, and that's going to be Gone to Tahiti picking that one up. Maybe even the kill afterward. Turtle form trying to get away here, but looks like the lockdown not going to be enough. River is the one that goes down instead. Snipes coming true for Benny Q, and that's going to set layers up for a second one. Sop's going to get burned down. Let's make it 3, not all onto the jungler. As Wolves gets credit for Cope, but that's a 3-for-0 trade. They lose out on the Fury, but I think they're happy with the way the fight goes afterward.
I said it before at the very beginning of the game, and even during the little break that we had, if they leave the objectives alone with Cope, Sops, Diesel, and Riveros, then it's just going to get burned out completely. It's exactly what happened, but IPUnit, Unit, they weren't really there for the Gold Fury, they were there for kills. They want to appease the Blood God, as talked about earlier, and they're also going to go ahead and appease the Objective Gods, and picking up this Pyromancer in retaliation.
That's going to be something distinct for them to at least give them a small lead over what we've seen from Gone to Tahiti. Now, actually, 1,600 mounted up quite a bit in the last few seconds. And like you said, Blood for the Blood God, 12 kills, 12 minutes. They're making sure they keep pace with that marker. It's going to be difficult to keep it up. What I'm actually most surprised about is you've got 7 kills across your team. Benny Q has been a part of 5 of them. Not one of them has been a kill picked up for him. Fortunately, right now, it doesn't seem like things are going his way. Might not be able to turn this one around, as they're going to 3-on-1 collapse in on the Hunter and burn him down. Gone to Tahiti, at this point, just trying to keep things equitable for them as much as possible. There's a little solo kill potential all across the map. Mando barely getting out of this one, but that just seems to be the way it is for Mando whenever he's playing a tank in the solo lane.
Oh. He's still getting dove on here by Wolves, but still has enough mana to get the leap away, so it's just more of a backstop there rather than a kill potential. If Wolves was able to get his transformation off at the right time there could have been a potential for that solo kill as you were alluding to, but unfortunately, Mandalorian gets back to base and is all full health, full mana again, even gets himself a Void Stone with his latest back. Storms finds himself in danger in his own jungle.
Not even enough time to tell you what happened there. He was melted before the ult could get off. Part of the reason we always talk so negatively about Kronos is how long that ult takes to get going. Now you might see one of the reasons we aren't too positive about how this solo lane will go, although when Mando throws 3 people at once, you know he's going to be able to at least self-peel. He might lose the tower, but keeps his life. Impressive from him to be able to thwart a 4-man gank onto his lane. Even getting aggressive. There's still 4 people over here, Mando. I don't know where you thought they went. They never left, man. They're still here. And so that one's going to cost him his life.
That's just punishment for stopping the back. And meanwhile, on the left-hand side, Benny Q is dove underneath the tower, forced into the ultimate. Wolves teleports in to help peel for the rest of the game. Well, for the rest of the team, sorry. Has gone to the Tahiti, see the big bad Kakullan form underneath that tower and back off.
They're finding themselves no kills on the side of Gone to Tahiti. Unfortunately, they keep getting locked down. Still, I'm more impressed with the fact that every time I look up, it seems like the gold lead isn't growing for hi-rez, even though it felt like it took a pretty big swing for them a little bit ago when they took that Pyromancer. Nothing big in their favor, and you can see it in the charts. It kind of went up and then slowly dipped back down. Experience, though, a different story. Hasn't necessarily dipped back in favor of Gone to Tahiti at all. 2 levels there in the jungle, actually losing a level there in the mid lane. But other than that, they have a level advantage in every single role for hi-rez. And so outside of Nehu, who at this point, you know, just half a level down, isn't going to be too worried about Sops, they're definitely in control here for hi-rez. But you're in this awkward position. You got a minute until you have a Primal Fury come back up, a little over that until the Pyromancer comes back up. Not a lot of options on the map right now to really get aggressive and kind of show your hand.
No, and I'd say you said he builds things that don't really make sense, and I am questioning the early pickup of the Polynomicon here, with the fact that he has no penetration in his build so far to really make it worthwhile. The power's coming out from the Book of Thoth. He is playing it like a mage, as a pure mage Chronos rather than as an attack speed Chronos, and I do respect that. I think it's a good look for the Chronos these days, especially with the nerfs to the rings that has been, coming out quite fast and furious since the rings got reworked. And I just feel like the Polynomicon should have come out later rather than now. Get some penetration online first.
Well, we'll have to see what he has. Went from 2-0-2 when we were talking about him right as we got back into the game to 2-2-3, so not really the best swing around for Gone to Tahiti as of yet. Layers, well, he's their target, but unfortunately Suku is just faster than anybody and everybody that looks to chase him down. Primal Fury is available. Doesn't seem like Gone to Tahiti want anything to do with it just yet. Mando standing at front and center every single time. If you're going to come into a fight, you know he's going to be a part of it. That ult, we've already seen, has grabbed 3 people at once so far this game. Granted, it was a gank onto him, so maybe a little easier, but he's still going to be looking for those opportunities. Unfortunately, as of right now, it's just coming out as a stalemate, and actually maybe giving Hype Unit the ground they need to start things up.
Yeah, but with all the ground that they've gotten, they've also left BennyQ by himself over here. Do get the blink out of Riveros. A bit more lifesteal coming out from BennyQ's, allowing him to just stay in this fight very easily.
Ooh, and a 2-man stun there from River, going to be able to at least set things up, but you would hope that something more came out of it. Instead, Layers is going to be the one to turn it around. Snipes from BennyQ. The one who was low is already gone, so he's just looking for some extra damage to throw out there. And that surplus does find its way onto Diesel. Now it's going to be, what can Mando do? A 2-man toss back. Quig and Mando, instead Wolves, I should say, that are getting locked down. But Wolves is going to be able to stay alive through this. Quig just got erased off the board. Layers, 1 hit from dead, but that's 1 hit more that Gone to Tahiti weren't able to find. So he looks like he'll be able to walk it out alive. Mando might spot it, but not going to be in time. Same thing for Wolves and BennyQ here. All going to be able to back and get away with that. So support for jungle feels like it's more worthwhile for Hype Unit.
Yeah, 1-for-1 trade. It looked like it was going to be a bit more, though, for Gone to Tahiti after the double throwback from Mando Warrior just obliterated Quig's health. Layers almost took a fall there. BennyQ was just pumping out the damage, though, and just the threat from that ROM's DPS was enough to put Gone to Tahiti on the back foot, despite the fact that they were pretty much guaranteed a second kill if they just aggressed a bit further.
Well, that's the question of aggression. Last time they had no issues with it. This time, things are slowing down a little bit. I keep updating Chronos because I keep these numbers in my mind. 3-2-3, so he's able to pick up 1 throughout that engagement. And anything that keeps him moving forward, I think, for Sops, is always going to be a detriment to Hype Unit. Now, you had asked for penetration. He goes for that Divine Ruin. Maybe not percent, but still something on board for him. Does it open up his ability to, I mean, right now, Wolves seems to be undying and unkillable for the most part. Is there at least a little more shred potential now that Divine Ruin's online?
There's way more shred potential than there was before, but they're going to have to go up against the fact that he's got himself some damage mitigation in that Oni Hunter's Garb, going from 3 to 6 to 9, depending on how many players are around him from the enemy team. Wolves is going to be just an absolute juggernaut and a nightmare to deal with until he does get percent penetration online, and I feel that's going to be maybe his next item goes into a Obsidian Shard, which has seen a recent revival given some choice build paths by mid lane mages these days. But choice pathing is what Hype Unit have done, so they found themselves an opening for this Primal Fury.
Oh, they're going to be able to take it on the side of Hype Unit, but that's 2 tossed back once again by Mando Warrior, and that's going to be able to find 2 kills. BennyQ Quig taken off before the fight could really start for them. Now, Mehu and the crew trying to retreat, and they'll get under that tier 2 tower, no problem. Then Wheelishell not going to be able to get the full pull, so Layers not going to get the benefits of the kill through that one. Now, you're in this unfortunate scenario. Almost everything used. It looks like they're making a barrel straight to Fire Giant. I don't know, Alpha, how do you feel like they can actually confirm this in time?
Yeah, I think they can do this in time, especially with that attack speed boost. Unfortunately, Sops does not pick up the attack speed boost. It's just Diesel that got it. But look how fast that Fire Giant is burning for these objective burners. And Gone to Tahiti do secure it. Wolves does blink in, but I think it's blinking into his doom if they keep up the chase. But it's going to be just a bit of a split decision here about who exactly they want to go on to.
Well, good disengage coming in from Hype Unit, even though they weren't able to get that Fire Giant. Cope a little low, so he's going to back off, but the rest of them, they got Fire Giant buff. They're happy to maybe keep this fight going, although, as I say that, they decide to turn tail and run completely for Gone to Tahiti. So Pyromancer looking like it'll go the way of the Hype Unit. So ultimately, I don't even know where we come out on this. You're 3,000 gold down, but you've got the Fire Giant buff. That's a lot of gold in terms of towers that's available for Gone to Tahiti. We'll have to see if they can really make it apply, as we saw in the last team fight, and I think the KDs represent this as well. 7-2-3 for Layers. If he's not able to start getting kills, it just doesn't seem to go the way of Hype Unit. So that might be the way Gone to Tahiti get back into this. And even more pressure for me on the Cope to start to perform.
Yeah, I think right now Gone to Tahiti, whilst they don't have necessarily the gold lead, with the Fire Giant around their belts, that is essentially around 5,000 gold, 1,000 per member of your team, in terms of the amount of power and regen it gives you. And you can convert that 5,000 gold into actual 5,000 gold in hand by taking down a couple of towers, maybe a Phoenix or a Gold Fury if that's available to you at the time. So Gone to Tahiti put themselves in a position where they are going to get themselves ahead in terms of gold, ahead in terms of experience, maybe not ahead in the jungle department, that's going to take a while for Reverse to catch back up. But Hype Unit, they've got to be careful that they don't allow too much to fall down.
You might not be on the same level, but you still have a big team fight. Oh, we'll have to see it come to fruition right here. Immediately goes into the Dazzling Offense, gets a stun onto the backline. Just not going to be able to find any good follow-up. Tier 2 tower goes down. That was the main goal for Gone to Tahiti, but Quig is incredibly low. They might be able to find the kill. Good Odin Cage looking to lock people up, but the health bars are low on both sides. Minikyu looking for some snipes, but it's Cope, the driving force, the driving factor, but Nehu, who turns it around immediately, finding 2 kills, too much damage from the Discordia. Mando gets into the backline to kill her off, but it's a 3-for-1 trade so far. Sops just trying to stay alive. Cope trying to play distraction factor. Looks like the CC is going to be good. One more hit is all it needs, but the body blocks coming in time. Sops not going to be able to find the kill there. Instead, loses his life, loses his buff. All for that Tier 2 tower. A big swing for Hype Unit.
Nehu may have fallen during that fight, but I salute you, Nehu. That Strife and Unruly Magic combo that he got off there absolutely turns the fight around in Hype Unit's favor. They look down and out until Nehu just comes up clutch with a double kill and completely wipes out the rest of the members of Gone to Tahiti's health bars. Only Cope Baby survives, and he has to sacrifice Sops to get out. The Riveros and Diesel just obliterated in the blink of an eye.
Not where you want to be if you're Gone to Tahiti. I mean, you had Fire Giant buff. It felt like it could have been so much more, and I think technically lessened the gold lead slightly, but still now sitting 2,000, almost 3,000 in favor of Hype Unit. And, well, unfortunately for Cope Baby, it looks like that's going to be another grab, almost burn from Layers. Not enough to get the kill here. So maybe some room to operate, knowing that the jungler for Hype Unit doesn't have his ult available. But there's nothing on the map. I mean, there's nothing for really either team to do. No Gold Fury, no Pyro, no Fire Giant. And neither team confident enough, I think, right now to try and dive into these towers. So it's back to farm and back to basics to try and get things right back on track here for Gone to Tahiti.
Yeah, Gold Fury's respawns in 33 seconds, and I think that's exactly where the next fight is going to be taking place. Gone to Tahiti kind of needs to secure it to put themselves back on even footing, whilst Hype Unit, they'll want to take that one down for themselves to establish a bit of a commanding presence around this next Fire Giant. Don't forget, next Fire Giant will be the last one that either team would get that's not enhanced, and they'll be able to use that to set up for taking down those Phoenixes and maybe looking to push into the Titan on that next Fire Giant push. Should they get this next one that spawned?
You know, we've seen the difference in a few games so far today, where having those minions has enabled those backdoor protections to disappear and well, really enable the team to just shred whatever they're looking at. Now, the option is to try and shred some kills. Quig tossed back to the Sharks, but there's not going to be anybody to chomp down and find the bite. Two-man stun from Riveros, but it doesn't mean anything. Again, all of this coming through. It's not quite finding what they needed to. Sop's going to be able to get the rewind off, but does it lead him into a worse position? The answer seems to be yes. He's trying to turn it around, but once again, Nehu with too much damage, too much lockdown for them to deal with on Gone to Tahiti. They're going to lose 2-for-0 on this engagement. And the rest either turned back to base already, or if you're Mando, still running, just to make sure you get out of there in time. Enough members alive to contest a Fire Giant, but not enough that you can really feel confident in your fights, and definitely not enough to take this fight. I think Mando, recognizing that as Minikyu shreds his health bar. That attack speed you had asked for a little bit earlier, well, it's online now.
Fire Giant's going to be online as well. If the rest of the members of Hype Unit have their way, Mando Warrior forced to jump away. Riveros is giving this one up, but I think that's the correct decision for him. Diesel's long-range hail of arrows could be the only thing that's got a chance at stealing it here. But that involves him getting into position, and if you see what happens to Mando Warrior, he's immediately swarmed on by the Sharks that are a Hype Unit and forced away very quickly.
No, Riveros seems to have resigned themselves over there to getting a Gold Fury, which is going to be helpful, but you see it's still taking some time. They're going to be able to pick it up, and that's going to lessen some of the lead Gone to Tahiti have.
Oh.
Still, Fire Giant, you had said earlier, kind of equates to just blanket 5,000 gold, 1,000 per player, let alone what you can actually pick up on the map here. 3 tier 2 still standing, so still a pretty significant lead that can go in your favor. But we also highlighted it earlier. We were watching as Gone to Tahiti were playing catch-up. They were behind in experience, technically still behind in experience, but with 3 people at level 20, 1 person on par with their opponent, and then Mando still technically 1 level behind here from Wolves. You've mostly caught up where they needed to. The jungle was the one we were looking at earlier, but I think, you know, having your mid and your carry hit that same mark is going to be beneficial for them. But it comes down to that defense once again, and I don't know about you, Alpha Jackal, but I do really like Amaterasu and Xing Chen on defense. I like them on offense just as well. I just think those are good teamfight ultimates.
I think right now they've got 3 of the best defensive teamfight ultimates that you can have outside of mages in, like you said, the Xing Chen, the Amaterasu, and the Odin. But something which I've only just seen right now is Riveros' build on this Amaterasu. Last time went in for some more hammers, so a bit more of a bruiser build, but this time gone straight into that DPS, a Malice choice, and going into what I can only presume to be a Rage or a Deathbringer as his next item, as well as that Void Shield. He really wants to just instantly kill people with a few crits, just get them out the game as quickly as possible. Not exactly the style I would see Amaterasu playing from the jungle.
Yeah, it's a little different, right? I didn't expect the crit of all things to come through, so we'll see how it works out for him. As right now it's only tier 2. And speaking of tier 2s, they're going to have 1 going down in left. Looked like maybe 1 going down in mid, but there's going to be just 1 Uller, 1 Xing Chen, and that's enough to thwart the 3 members of Hype Unit, but they're regrouping, all 5 of them. Right around the corner. Quig going to be locked in there. Mando going to be able to grab 2 once again. Only throws 1 back to the Wolves. And right alongside Wolves is going to be able to help find some damage. In fact, they turn it around. Mando is the one who gets shredded. Same thing for River. Snipe's not quite going to connect there for Benny Q, but who cares? Yes, they walk away alive. Diesel does. But you managed to get the tier 2, 2 kills, and now you're barreling down mid towards a Phoenix. That's going to get shredded almost like it's nothing. Same thing seems to be said here for the left-hand side. And Alpha Jackal, they have 40 seconds before either of those 2 picks respawn. It's a 3v5 as of right now. It's whether or not they're aggressive enough and confident enough to try and get in there. Minions on their side. They're looking to get aggressive. Cope gets pulled right back in. The cage comes down, but it might not be enough to get him out of there. Wolves was looking for the kills, but instead, who cares about Cope? Go into the back, find Diesel, find the rest of them, and look for this Titan. They're going to be going in. It's half health as of right now. Looking for the burn. Sops 1 hit away from death, but that fountain going to pay its weight in gold. Looking for a stun, but it's going to come just too late. Game number 2 goes the way of Hype Unit.
I mean, what can you do there if you're Gone to Tahiti?
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of a reverse of game 1 where Gone to Tahiti just swiped the floor with Hype Unit. Now Hype Unit have come back and said, no, this is how we're going to win. We're going to swipe the floor with you. Just snowballs on either side, and that Discordia and Awilix. Those are the 2 picks I'm looking at that was just monstrous in that game.
They absolutely pulled things back in their favor. I mean, one of the biggest fights I think that was favorable was Nehu finding that combo on the Discordia. So big turnaround in terms of performance, in terms of gameplay, everything there for Hype Unit. Much what you need to see here is we're going to be going to game number 3. But before that, we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. Hype Unit clutch it out and force a game number 3. Mifflin in a set where they looked like they were going to get overrun pretty heavily. Hype Unit bounced back in a big way. Layers in particular on this Awilix pick was absolutely fantastic. Nehu also made a lot of great plays. That one by his tier 2 tower and left in particular on the Discordia. Much, much better from him than on the Nuwa.
Yeah, I just like this look a lot more in general for the Hype Unit boys. Just getting a little bit more aggressive in the early game, having a god like Discordia that's able to pop off. Layers absolutely leading the charge, getting aggressive early and constantly throughout the entirety of the match. And that's a pick that really only comes through because of that early Odin pick for Gone to Tahiti, kind of facilitating this Awilix counter. But I gotta give some shouts to Wolves as well. Only dies once the entire game, finds a couple of choice kills, 12 assists, and was constantly beating out the rotation of Mando Warrior towards the Gold Fury, towards the Pyromancer, towards every single team fight in mid. This Soul Laner is looking really hot.
Wolves has a very good game in this one, and they really needed it, did Hype Unit. That right side of the map shores up and leads them to victory. Sops on the Chronos instead of the Thoth. Ends up top player damage overall, pretty good KDA as well, but not enough to bring home the 2-0 sweep. So now we're going to be heading to a game number 3 in a pretty important setup here because the team that wins this gets their shot at beating Baskin and the boys, which is what everyone wants to do in North America. This is a team to beat. This would give you the most chances to do it because even if you were to lose to them tomorrow, you could always make your way back through the lower bracket.
Yeah, I think that this is a hugely important set, especially considering it's so late in the day. These guys have been playing all day, been watching the games, and now, towards 6:30 p.m., they're really about to get down to the last bit of it. And I think in particular this set, Game 3, we've seen two very different versions of both teams. Now we can see how they decide to adjust to the play styles, whether or not we see Baskin and the boy, or Gone to Tahiti rather, trying to bring that same level of aggression that we saw from Hype Unit in Game 2. If we see him trying to reprise that play style of playing for the late game, getting the Chronos again, whether or not we see him try and go back to the Thoth. There's a lot of individual meta things that are going to be developing as these two teams go into Game 3. I think a lot of it's going to be reflected in P's and B's.
Well, let's get right to them then, shall we? P's and B's for game number 3, starting right now. It's been Hype Unit in that first pick slot a whole lot so far in this set. I believe they've been first pick in both of the first 2 games. This game, they get second pick, Gone to Tahiti, choose to take that first pick. And I think this is going to be interesting because this Amaterasu pick that Gone to Tahiti prioritized has consistently gone into the jungle for Mollusk, but it's been a bit of a different build. He went crit in this game. I don't know that is worth the first pick. I think Ama solo is worth first pick, but I don't know that Ama jungle really is.
Yeah, you decided to pick up the Malice, which helps out a little bit with cooldown, helps out with your auto-attack-centric build a little bit. I'm lying, I don't super love the Malice in the Amaterasu build, or Amaterasu in jungle in general. I think if you want to play an auto-attacker god, Nemesis, Mercury, even Pele to a certain extent. I don't care, go auto-attack Thanatos. I think those are the type of things that you can look towards that are going to bring a lot more value into your jungle role. But knowing Mollusk and how he likes to play, playing gods like Thor, or even coming from a role like support, he really likes to get involved early on. He wants to be the person initiating the fights. He likes using that dazzling offensive to be the first one in. But if that's the playstyle you're going for as well, you have gods like Hunbots available. Blink in, fear no evil. You're going to do the exact same thing, and it's much easier to perform on. I completely agree with you. Amaterasu should be more valued in the solo role.
Well, Rom banned this time around instead of first picked, so we're going to see something different in the P's and B's this time around. Both Persephone and Yamoja banned by Gone to Tahiti. As Hype Unit continue with their same bans, with the same 3 they've gone with every single game of this set: Nemesis, Kuzenbo, and now Sobek. Cthulhu's open, but Gone to Tahiti has not shown any sort of willingness to prioritize that god quite yet. Believe he made it through picks and bans of both sides last time around. Hercules is a god that we were just talking about a little bit in between games. Kind of crazy that we haven't seen him at all so far, I feel like. Finally picked up here by Gone to Tahiti.
Yeah, no one in the SOC or SEC seems to like this pick, and I will assume that it's going to be going into support because that's where we're traditionally used to seeing it. Gods gods makes sense. PBM, Aurora, they really put a handle on this god in lane. I think that it's such a high-valued pick because it's just going to bring pressure to that long lane no matter what you decide to pair it with. Even against gods like Hebois, you're going to have a decent matchup. Hebo has to get in really close to deal his damage. It's very choreographed what he's going to do. A driving strike to instantly set up for the rest of your team is going to be hugely impactful. But it seems like we're seeing a lot of differences here because of that ROM ban. Cupid finally being hovered, but it's probably going to be Ull.
Oh, hey, fam.
It's going to be Jingwei instead this time for Hype Unit. It's been gone to Tahiti that likes the Uller pick, and I think Uller would have been really, really bad into a Cupid selection on the other side alongside Hercules, but alas, that is not the call. It seems like for Hype Unit this time around. They go with a couple of knockups on their side. Gone to Tahiti go back to the Amaterasu, though it has been in the jungle for them 2 games in a row. We'll see if Mando is going to take that into the short lane this time around, or if it will stay in Mollusk's hands in the jungle. If I'm Gone to Tahiti here, I'm just picking something for Sops that he's going to feel comfortable on and is going to be able to run the game. They love to get their front line early, though. Then they go Amaterasu, Robin. They seem to like letting Sops get his counter pick later on in the draft.
Well, that's an interesting first 3 picks for GTT. Hercules, Amaterasu, and Robin makes it a little bit harder to lock down where you think they're going to go. It does really seem like it's going to be Hercules support, Amaterasu in the solo lane, and Robin in the jungle. I think that makes the most sense for each one of these individual picks. But again, knowing these guys, we might see them try and switch it up a little bit once we get to that phase. On the other side, though, a little bit more sense can be made. Jingwei, most likely going into the long lane, could potentially, and potentially is very loosely used here, flex into mid. Hebo, more likely going to be a flex, could go jungle, could actually go mid. King Arthur, almost guaranteed going to that short lane. I like both drafts so far, but Hype Unit taking Hebo and Jingwei on their first picks when gods like Amaterasu are still available is just a little bit questioning to me. We know that Jingwei hasn't really been getting prioritized. I think they could have much better got off with the Amaterasu pick.
Agreed, but clearly Hype Unit doesn't feel like Ama's that strong or fits their playstyle that well. They've passed on her every single game so far of this set, and no different here in game number 3. A couple mid laners banned by Hype Unit, Morrigan and Discordia. Taken off the board, gone to Tahiti, looking at Quig's God Pool with that Kepri ban. Love the Arthur, though, from Wolves here. It's not a god that we see as much as we used to in that solo lane, but still a potent selection and a comfort pick for Wolves. He's played this god a ton.
Yeah, he loves playing these highly aggressive, I'm going to get in your face, trade out health bars with you. I mean, if he's just dealing damage, it doesn't matter if he's getting the worst end of an auto attack trade or something like that. Wolves just love seeing the numbers pop up on his screen. He's one of the most annoying people to ever play against on the planet. But King Arthur into the Amaterasu, if it is going to be Amaterasu going into solo, is an interesting matchup. That Beyblade spin is going to be very easy to cancel out. The ability to set up for ganks might actually favor Amaterasu just because of the dazzling offensive. It's not going to be an easy lane, but whichever one of these two guys pulls a lead in the early should be able to maintain it relatively well.
Sops goes to the Agni this time around. A little bit more traditional in the mage pool for him. No Chronos this time around. Agni, I think, probably slept on a little bit. Feels like he is an actively good mage. If I had to describe Agni, put him on the tier list, he's good. You know, he's not nuts, he's not bad. He'll do mage stuff. If he gets ahead, he's really, really good. If he gets behind, he kind of stinks. Like, he just kind of doing mage stuff in the mid lane. I don't know. Again, I don't want to say he's the vanilla mage because I think vanilla is like the best ice cream flavor, so that would be giving him too much credit. But he's good, is what I would say.
Yeah, mint chocolate chip's the best ice cream flavor, but keeping that trend going, just a middle-of-the-road pick again. Hachiman coming through here. Not one you're super excited to see, but the CC immunity, survivability, EI Jutsu for the stun, all very good. I like Agni in particular into this draft. Into Hebo, decent poke from a range. You can engage from there. You find the stun, set up for your team. You don't have to get into that crushing wave range. It's good into Jingwei for the exact same reason, and it's got the safety to be able to avoid the knockups from Horus or even try and dash out of any sort of setups that Set go for. I think it's a very smart pick for GTT.
And a Set pick at the very end for Hype Unit. Horus Set combo, but both on the same side this time around for Hype Unit. I think the hype unit draft does look fairly strong, but a little bit execution heavy. That's my only concern for them. How about for you, Miff? Which draft do you like more?
I think I'm leaning just ever so slightly towards GTTs, man. I love Amaterasu. If it is actually going to the Soul Lane, this is the first time we're going to see it today, performed at full value. Matched up with the Agni with a counter matchup into the Hebo, I think it's pretty good for them.
One final game to close us out on Friday. Which team's moving on to the semifinals tomorrow? Gormizer and Alpha Jackal have your answer.
Well, it's time to find out as we go forward, and, well, it is Mando. Surprise, surprise, not on a Guardian. Granted, with their composition, he had no choice, Alpha Jackal, but it's still something that is maybe going to catch some of us off guard. Agni as well. Got to Tahiti, look like they have a pretty solid draft, but hype unit, as Aggro had pointed out, is great if the execution is there. Do you have one that you kind of prefer more than the other?
In terms of comps, I like Gone to Tahiti's a lot more. It's a lot less execution heavy, allows for a bit more mistakes. But with Hype Unit, if they get off the damage that they need to, if they get off the abilities that they need to, will find themselves here with a victory. And he said that we had the answers. Aggro said that we had the answer to who's going through. I don't have the answer. I'm waiting for this game to finish like everybody else. I haven't been handed the script with you.
Yeah, Hindu only leaks the script to a select few. And as of right now, I think most of our parts are actually blacked out. It's really weird overall. You know, he gives us a script, but then also tells us not to worry about some of our lines. It's bizarre sometimes. Either way, it looks like Quig right now is in a little bit of trouble. Nothing going to lead to a death just yet, but this is something I anticipate a lot over this duo lane. Benny Q, gonna be fine. Quig should be able to survive, but always under threat of Cope getting a little aggressive. That Odin didn't really hit any of the marks I wanted it to last game. Hercules, though, I anticipate it having a stellar game.
Yeah, there's most likely a reason that it's been banned in North American SCC games day in, day out, week in, week out, split in, split out. And we're finally getting to see one of the few times it's let through in the first set of bans, which is why it's been picked up early for Gone to Tahiti. And so far the pressure has been telling on that duo lane. B's already forced from Benny Q, and that's not a good look for the Qingwei, but thankfully he is playing Qingwei and not any other ADC. Considering if he does get hit by that Earthbreaker just before the driving strike hits, he can always dash away.
Yeah, just has to zoom out of there to make sure things stay safe for him. I'm still curious about this. Again, Mando, we see him on Guardians all the time, and the survivability maybe going to give him a little too much confidence. I'm excited to see if anything big happens over there in the solo lane, but I honestly also doubt anything big is going to happen. I'm also paying a lot of attention to River right now. Running around in the jungle, did the back Harpies, now looking for the speed buff. Harpies just now noticed by Layers. This could be bad, depending on what goes on. Layers is going to be going over to help defend the purple buff. Cope now getting aggressed on, a little under half health. Speed buff stripped away through all of that by River. Now that aggression might pay off as they rotate over to the solo lane.
Yeah, Mando Warrior eating a bit more damage than he would have liked to, but Riveros doing exactly what he needs to do against the King Arthur, which is just stripping away the blue buff. So you defend your purple buff successfully. I tip my hat to you, Layers, but little did you know that your King's now in check, so it's your move.
It costs you 2 buffs in the process of defending, or yeah, just defending the one, not even trying to do anything in terms of secure. I think that's even bigger to look at the farm now. That's going to be going in favor of Gone to Tahiti. Again, a very small amount. In fact, actually not enough to give them a distinct lead overall in their jungle just yet. And that might just be because they've taken their sweet time confirming their own. They lose their own blue buff, so that one comes out. Honestly, maybe worse for Mando, because now he doesn't have anything. He wasn't up there to grab the buff that was stolen away, and now his has been taken by Wolves, so that at least mana regen is going to be in favor of Hype Unit. Now with that speed buff on the side of River, might give him a little bit of a benefit, but not to match up to a first blood bounty. Cope maybe too aggressive this time around.
Yeah, Cope just got stun locked there by Quig and Benny Q. Just hit by the stun, hit by the knockup from Quig. Benny Q follows up with his persistent gust. All the meantime, just pumping out those basic attacks. And you may be a Hercules, you may be, dealing out all the damage, but you still take damage as like a mortal, and you die like the mortal god you are.
Yeah, easy to burn down, especially this early on. I mean, you've got tank boots, that's it? Yeah, no, you're going to die 9 times out of 10 if they catch you out, and then they lock you down the way they do. Also, my favorite thing about Horus that comes through is that protection shred. So even if you have a little bit early on, it's going to be pretty easy to burn through these warrior supports on the other side. So not the way you expect that dual lane to go in terms of aggression. Well, honestly, not the way I expected the jungle to go in terms of aggression. As of right now, it's all come out as a small net benefit for Gone to Tahiti. And something as negligible as one individual ward. Mando's looking to change that. Ult locked down. Wolves one hit, but Wolves turns it around. The tower does too much damage for Mando, and now your jungler over here for Gone to Tahiti, forced to ult away from the fight in mid just to try and save his life. Sop's too low to really get back in here. So everything coming out as a wash for Gone to Tahiti. Even if they have these small leads, they're losing them in the fights.
Yeah, Mando Warrior just a bit too aggressive on that dive. Just didn't estimate his damage correctly there, and unfortunately Wolves was able to turn it around beautifully, and that's going to be another blue buff lost here for the side of Gone to Tahiti. There could also be damage again onto Mando Warrior. The rest of the members are here. The stun is going to miss from Quig, and I believe that stun did hit. Les was there ready and waiting with his Kingslayer ultimate.
Yeah, it would have been potentially more lockdown, another kill even. That could have gone their way. As of right now, again, all comes out
Speed buff invade.
smooth. But Layers, yeah, taking a note here from River. He's at least going to be able to get the buff. Might be able to find more. Blue buff they had already stolen. So that timer is a little wonky compared to the speed buff. And it seems like they're going to be just fine taking this jungle away. Unfortunate for Gone to Tahiti. So now that gold lead that I had said they had, even though it was as negligible as just one little ward, now is all in favor of Hype Unit. Just a few hundred gold still. But these fights consistently going their way, the buffs going their way. They need something big to turn this around, and River getting caught out might not be the play. Good knock-up, good lockdown. The immunity frames for this Robin did enough to begin with, but it's not enough to get you out this time. And Sops, unfortunately, tried to get aggressive and save him. That's not going to work, though. Just melted by Nehu. And now they're winning fights all across the board. Even Diesel can't quite hold up the fight that he needs to Benikiu's Jingwei.
It's the only lane with those which is going somewhat positive for them, and it's only a 0-0 versus a 1-0 on the side of Hype Unit for Benikiu, getting that first blood early on. But just one misplay from Mando Warriors led to the fact that Wolves has now got free reign over here on this right-hand side. The fact that they invaded onto the blue buff early meant that Layers was angry and invaded onto their blue buff, which has helped start this snowball. It's interesting just to see that tiny little butterfly effect that's rippled throughout the entirety of the map that's led to the fact that Hype Unit now have complete control over on this right-hand side. Just one blue buff invade. You think it's going to go the way of Gone to Tahiti at that point. Actually turns into Hype Unit having a 3-0 solo laner.
There's not what you want to see. You get a King Arthur, you know it's execution based. They're executing on the side of Hype Unit. And as of right now, even getting aggressive into the blue buff, taken up into the air. Maybe not a lot of solo potential. Well, I say that. I see that health bar getting chunked by Mando. No mana online for him either. This is Amaterasu.
He's diving
definitely
tower.
In danger. We've seen this tower dive before, though. Unfortunately for Mando, it didn't quite go the way it did before. 4-0 now reads the kills for Wolves. Benikiu goes down on the other side of the map, so at least they're pulling something back. But 1-5, when 4 of them are on one guy, I feel like we've seen this story before today. Paid off well for Gone to Tahiti. Let's see if Hype Unit can keep it up as they're chasing down Nehu. Not going to be able to get the kill there. Instead, River getting dove in once again onto the tier 1. They'll pull Layers back, so jungle for jungle. Solo for carry. Ultimately still a 2 for 2, but it just still feels like Hype Unit are walking away happier.
Yeah, to all of you people who play casuals and were in ranked and are in chat right now saying after the mid-season patch King Arthur was dead and would be around no more, Wolves has something to say to you. He says, hello, King Arthur is still a nutty character and you should be playing him time and time again. 4-0 right now for the solo lane warrior for Hype Unit. Coke Baby picks up Nehu in the mid lane as Gone to TT starting to claw themselves back into the game on the other side of the map.
That's one of those kills that you don't get it because you need the kill. You get it because you're trying to keep pace with the kill per minute rule that these two teams have apparently established on themselves. 9 kills, 9 minutes. So you had to get something. I guess Cope just needed to make sure one got on the board. And Nehu happily, maybe not really happily, complying. Also worth noting, we mentioned it earlier on the Nuwa, looks like he's going for this Rod of Tahuti start once again. Maybe he's going to shift to something different. We'll have to keep our eyes on that one. But interesting nonetheless for Nehu. Much better start to this game, although still a level down from Sop. So something that he's going to have to work for if that is the item he intends to go.
I mean, for me, if you're going to be going for a Rod of Tahuti rush, you don't go Mage's Blessing. You just get tier 2 Rod of Tahuti straight off the bat. Just get that MP5, just get it done as quickly as possible. If you need to back for boots early on, then so be it, back for boots. But don't spend that extra 700 gold on the Mage's Blessing. That's just my personal opinion. No, it could be completely different train of thought here. Could just be looking out for his mana situation. Could be looking out for his support, who is almost at the end of his ropes.
Yeah, Quig almost burned down, but not quite burned down. It looks like that Horus is going to be able to get away, not only alive, but happy. Didn't even have to ult, didn't have to back as of yet. Going to be able to swipe up some farm towards the end here as well. So they maintain their lives on the side of Hype Unit. And definitely shows that Gone to Tahiti still have the teeth to bite back. That's just doing so consistently right now. That's been the problem. Speaking of problems, yeah, I'm turning tail just like that. If I'm anybody on Gone to Tahiti, the minute I see this King Arthur, I don't know that I want to fight. Even in 2v1, I don't know if this is going to be beneficial, but they're going to try it anyway. Mando gets aggressive. Surprised to see River go in for the buff instead of the kill, but it seems like they're going for easy, confirmable farm as opposed to what could just be a wild goose chase, and letting Wolves off the hook this time.
Yeah, I have a feeling that they can look to do stuff onto Wolves at this point, considering he does have that Brawler Speed stick online very early, but BennyQ caught out in a rough spot in his own jungle, being chased away by Cope, baby. Does not get that Earthbreaker, so is unable to bring BennyQ back into the fray. Quick making his rotation just to heal up his ADC a bit more. Mid lane, bit more of a wash as well. Wolves still looking for this tower, still looking to try and get the shackles released from his wrists, so he can start rotating and be a free man over on the rest of the map and start terrorizing the rest of the game. Just bound to this solo lane a bit longer.
See if they can keep hold of it. Right now, I'm stressing for Mando. I see a set in the jungle, lurking in the corner, in the depths, in the shadow, in the fog, and now going in for the burn. They're going to be able to find so much damage almost instantly. That tower means nothing to Hype Unit right now. They do have to find one more hit. Tier 2 maybe changes their mind. Doesn't matter. Doesn't even make it there. Mando taken down along with his Tier 1. They have to find the aggression elsewhere. Good knock-up from Nehu. Damage returned onto Cope. The teleport coming through from Wolves. He's going to come in maybe a second too late to save the mid laner. Maybe in time to pick up something in return. Damage is there. Cope way too deep, way too far. Doesn't look like he'll walk out alive. Layers gets another kill for himself to make sure things continue their way. River finally takes down the raid boss that is King Arthur.
Yes, good dive coming out from Hype Unit to get some of the kills onto the mid lane. Managed to get into Nehu. They trade Cope Baby for it, but then Gods Tahiti just say, we're going to take this fight as a dub for ourselves and take down this monstrosity of a solo laner. So just a bit more coordination so far from Gods Tahiti, I would say, rather than from Hype Unit.
That's how we were talking about it in Game 1 as well. More coordination from Gone to Tahiti than what we've seen out of Hype Unit. And if they continue that route, then yeah, you're 4-1 or 3-1 if you're the jungler there for Hype Unit. Might not make the end-all, be-all conversation as to who wins this and goes into the semifinals against Baskin and the boys. It's still what they're looking for here in this final game number 3. Loser goes down to the bottom bracket to fight for their survival. Just a few games between them and the finals down there, so it's not an impossible run, but still a little more difficult than you would want. Depending on how things go, we could end up seeing this match again sometime later tomorrow, potentially, if they go that way. But we'll have to see how they can fare through this one first. It's going to be Gold Fury, just a little late on the boulder for Cope, so it goes the way of Hype Unit. And all in all, even though the teamwork may be not quite as coordinated as we would like, things still keep coming up Hype Unit.
Yeah, I just cursed them into getting their act together and making sure they're still combining as a unit. They do so extremely well. They found the objective very easily, called it out calmly, called it secure very easily, weren't worried by anybody from Gods Tahiti crowding around the objective. All around, extremely good play from Hype Unit. Still need to defend on this mid-tier 1, still have some work to do as they lost their rep buff. Cope maybe sporting one himself. Sop's going to take the second buff. That is of the red variety on God's Tahiti. Betty Q got a spot trying to gank here on this left-hand side. The rest of the members are also making their way around just to try and force out this tier 1 tower on this left-hand side.
We're going to be able to get aggressive. Tier 1 on left going to go down. Mando caught between 2 towers and 2 gods. This does not bode well for Gone to Tahiti. And unfortunately, 0, 4, and 0 now reads the slash line for the solo laner on Gone to Tahiti. Benny Q gonna have to use his ult to disengage. Ult coming down from Diesel, looking to close the gap. The flag gonna come down, but the Aegis a little bit stronger this time around. Diesel can't stay to try and find the kill, and Riveros tails down to, well, let's call it 2/3 health here to stay alive. Quig chasing behind, Nehu right behind that. So if they can catch up and maybe lock this one down, there might be another kill on board. But right now, you know, if I'm looking at anything, it's the difference in solo laners. You've got this King Arthur who's got a ton of kills under his belt, and unfortunately Mando, who even though on the Xing Qian last game maybe didn't have the best impact, well, it was roughly undying for a lot of it, and now 0-4 and 0 on the Amaterasu doesn't seem to bode well overall for Gone to Tahiti.
No, it's not been the start of the game that they wanted over on the solo lane, but they've been picking it up, especially in the mid lane, I feel. Like, they've got good control over it. Cope is having a much, much, much better game.
Well, hey, that's going to be game number 3 on pause as of right now, and we'll get to the thrilling conclusion. But first, we have to take a quick break. Well, we don't care about your timers or your rules here. We want to get back into game as fast as possible, so we're already here. As we jump on in, Gone to Tahiti, still trailing a little bit behind Hype Unit, as myself and Alpha Jackal once again come to try and pilot you through, ideally, the remainder of this game. 2 members at 4 and 1, and Alpha Jackal, I mean, I don't know, it just feels like Hype Unit, even though maybe the team fights haven't been quite where they need to, the picks have been on point, and right as I look to hand it to you, Diesel maybe proving my point more than anything, as he gets taken down instantly in a 2v1.
Yeah, that's the worst possible target to have lost if you are Gone to Tahiti, considering he's been, quite instrumental to keeping this game as close as it is, keeping this lane quite nice and even, and the up-down, very brave from Riveros, but it's because he's got Cope maybe coming on the rotation. Sops maybe should have been on his way as well, but he's lagging a bit behind. Blink Dragon Strike is good, forcing the teleport away from Les, forcing the beads out as well. So good play so far for the support, brings Benny Q back in, forces out the airstrike, and this is the chance for Mando Warrior to prove his worth here on the Amaterasu.
Well, they're gonna try. The ult started up and the stun gonna come through, but no follow-up damage. In fact, now you're in the wrong neighborhood. Burned down, 1 hit. Wolves gets the kill. Now they're looking to get even more aggressive. Dropship from Quig right on to Cope. The driving strike might keep you alive for now. The stuns from Agni making sure things are slowed down, but it's not enough to save your support. Not this time, as Hype Unit make a huge turnaround in that fight. Run it right down left. Find themselves a huge advantage on top of that. 2,000 gold, everything coming up their way. And unfortunately, I mean, you highlighted it, Mando, a chance to prove himself, and now he reads 0, 5, and 0.
Yeah, just very aggressive. I like the fact that he was going for that aggressive play. I mean, Benny Q no longer had any of his safety available to him. Les was quite low. Didn't really seem to be anybody else rotating. But that was also part of the issue, was that no one else from Gone to Tahiti was in range to follow up from his stun, follow up from his setup. Then all of a sudden, out from the jungle comes Nehu, comes Wolves. All of the meanwhile, Sops still hadn't made his rotation fully over towards the fight, was lagging behind Nehu, even though he got into the jungle first. So maybe... I don't want to say there's disharmony around Gone to Tahiti, but it doesn't look like a team that's fully on the same page with each other.
Right now, stuns looking potentially good from Sops, but no follow-up for the team to be able to get aggressive. Mando looking for the stun, but now, once again, seems like he's left out to dry. Gonna follow up on the Alice of the Yellow River. Instead, they're gonna turn it around. Layers, 1 hit away, but doesn't die. Rivers, once again, ended up falling down. Another member for Gone to Tahiti, diving too deep under a tier 1. Now it's looking like just Pyromancer overall for Hype Unit. That might just be a small objective that helps turn things in their favor. Mando's looking at him like he wants to come in for a steal, just don't know what he has. Ultimately, the answer is nothing. Pyro goes the way of Hype Unit. As long as things stay up in their way, they'll be feeling just fine now as they escalate this to about 4,000 gold and 8 more kills in their favor than what Gone to Tahiti have been able to pick up.
Gone to Tahiti, they were in this position in the last game as well. They were down multiple kills, just weren't, down that much in gold, so it gave them that bit of hope. They managed to pick up the Fire Giant around this point in the game to get themselves back into things. But Hype Unit seem determined to not let that happen again, securing up this Oni Fury, putting pressure onto each one of those lanes thanks to those Oni minions spawning, sorry. And now that gives them an opportunity to either push down with these waves or go and do an objective whilst Gone to Tahiti have to deal with them.
That's that awkward moment. Gone to Tahiti now having to choose, where they want to defend, how they can get offensive. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like their offense is going to pay off too well for them. It hadn't paid off too much this game to begin with. And as we're starting to approach that 20-minute mark, things all favoring Hype Unit. Even though they've made some good plays from Gone to Tahiti, none have really resulted in these max kills that are coming through. And, Nehu did go that route to Tahuti. We were looking at that earlier, has gotten the Soul Gem now online. Bennyq's just had a pretty solid game. Neither of them have been coming up as much. Maybe the damage from Nehu, or specifically the ult, has been parts of these conversations. But it's Layers and Wolves right now. I mean, 11 of their 13 kills on the jungle and solo laner. It seems like Hype Unit, they might have all their chips on one thing, but it's working out well for them.
It is so far, and I think it's one of the things which allowed them to win the second game as well, was Layers having a phenomenal game on that at Wheelix, was helped out by Wolves having a very strong game on his pick as well, Nehu having a very strong Discordia game. But it looks like it is going to be Hype Unit starting up this objective. Mando Warrior has spotted it out, has told the rest of his team to, potentially try and get there as quickly as possible. Fire Giant down to 3,000 health, and now is the point where it's leash as the fight begins.
Ooh, and now the damage just seems to be coming up in favor of Hype Unit. We'll have to see if they can maintain this. Getting aggressive over there, but it's going to be Diesel. It's the first kill against Bennyq. You lose Nehu as well if your Hype Unit and Layers is one hit away. Riveros Cope, someone trying to seal the deal. The Boulder going to be able to hit it. He walked right into it, and that's going to be great for Gone to Tahiti to continue their aggression. Wolves looking at 1/3 HP. The heal not going to be enough. The knockup going to be great from the team. Now they're just chasing them down. One more kill's all they need for the deicide. They're going to peel off, though. They recognize this play. You're not going to distract us from the target. At bay, it's the Fire Giant that Gone to Tahiti want. Whether they can get it is the question. Quig, a low health, has mana, goes into the ult. He's going to be hovering and looking to dive on in. Once it gets low, he's going to try to go in for the steal. Unfortunately, burned down before he can do anything. That bird is cooked. This Fire Giant's down. And Gone to Tahiti have turned this game right on its head.
The Hype Unit look for the fight. They actively went ahead and engaged the fight, just they didn't blow anybody up to begin with like they usually do, and Sops controlled the fight from over the wall. Riveros goes in and gets himself some nice pickups, some nice damage. Mando Warrior does sacrifice himself, but manages to stay alive, well, manages to die quick enough, so therefore he gets alive to have this Fire Giant received around his belt as well.
I mean, being able to, I guess respawn in time is the nice way to try and say it. Although, with the way things have been going, does he deserve it, is the other side of the question. No 6-2, definitely a better fight for Gone to Tahiti, so something that we'll have to keep watching as time goes on. And on defense duty right now for Mando Warrior. But either way, you get yourselves Fire Giant, and you're happy with that, as well as dwindling that gold lead. In fact, even turning it ever so slightly, but in your favor. Now as you start to aggress into towers, tier 1s don't exist. Get rid of them. Get them out of the game. Doesn't matter that that one was standing there. It's these tier 2s instead that are going to be aggressive. Looks like Hype Unit might even want to try to defend it. Quick's going to go in and look for the aggression. The teleport coming through as well from Wolves. I don't know if this is going to be the fight, but Mando's going for the loop. He's trying to get into the back line. He's going to be able to at least stop a back. That should open up this tier 2 tower.
Good space control there so far from Mando Warrior. Means that tier 2 tower does fall down. I think it was going to happen regardless if he makes that rotation, but just gives it that extra bit of breathing room, extra bit of safety. It looks like they might be looking to push up onto this mid-Phoenix. Personally, I would say one of the other tier 2 towers should be the call. Maybe there's one on the left-hand side. Pushing up the minions as far as they can, and it looks like the Phoenix is going to be the call here. They'll have to get it hard fought, though.
They want to see what they can pick up right now. Phoenix at 3/4 health. Unfortunately, you can't say the same for a lot of Gone to Tahiti. They're taking a lot of damage in the process. Layer going to be the first one burned down. Phoenix still alive. They're still trying to find those last few hits. But at this point, it's just too tanky. There's too much, and they don't have the minions to support themselves. They'll push the wave back up. And they're going to try it again, this time with the Fire Giant sustain and a 5v4. What shell can they crack? BinnyQ going to be in trouble in the background. Beads forced ult still are not available for him to be able to try and use it defensively. A lot of damage going on to Mando, staying alive nonetheless. Something he's struggled with so far this game. Seems to be working out in the late portions. The boulder comes through and gets some damage back on the Quig. And now they're going to go right back into the Phoenix, this time with an advantage. But the damage from Nehu seems to be good enough to quell this one, but it's not stopping him. Mando might have to back, but the rest of the crew still pushing forward. So much in return. Layers respawning in 10 seconds. They don't get the Phoenix. They end up burning some time on that Fire Giant buff. Maybe even better as a defense all around for Hype Unit. Now Mando, he's going to be safe, but he's still a little bit too far forward for my liking.
And they've put in so much effort, so much resource, so many resources, so much utility into trying to get that mid Phoenix. Just wasn't able to crack it fully. See, it's barely standing up on its last feathers, but still standing, and that's all Hype Unit care about. It could be 1 health, could be 1,000 health. They're still to say, it's alive, we kept it alive, let's go. And it's a bit too difficult to push into that Phoenix. They should have gone for some of the other towers, put themselves a bit more gold in their pockets, because the Fire Giant is going to go away from their belt in about 15 seconds time. Just get as much gold as you can from this first one, because you were behind for most of this game, and then look to take the second Fire Giant as the ones to push into the Phoenixes with.
Yeah, 3 tries on that Phoenix, didn't quite find enough. Pyromancer going the way of Hype Unit. Gold Fury plus Tier 2 tower number 2 is what I was trying to say there. Going the way of Gone to Tahiti. So, 6,000, 5,000 gold, depending on how you want to read it. A little bit between the two is going to be in favor of Gone to Tahiti. Now, 1 tier tower still standing up between them and potentially another Phoenix. But it's the Fire Giant. 30 seconds left. That's going to be the call. And as you had highlighted last game, this would be the last one they can pick up before it becomes an enhanced Fire Giant. So we'll see what they can do with that one, as they'll still need minions and things like that for backdoor protections. Unfortunately, Quig doesn't have any protections of the sort. He's lucky he had a teammate in order to get out of there.
Yeah, it has just the ability to fly over and through a wall to the loving arms of Nehu, who was just trying to take down a camp for some extra farm. Quig goes back in and immediately eats half his health yet again, so not quite as safe as he thought he was going to be. Cope maybe walking into the enemy team, walking into the middle of 4 people, and lives because he's a Hercules. As he starts off the engagement quite well, the boulder connects, and Quig is the first to fall.
And that's a great way to start this one off, and Mando still getting aggressive, uses the ult, and Nehu layers, as well as BinnyQ, all isolated away from their King Arthur. So they might be able to find something, but no, Nehu says no, shuts them down with an exclamation point. In terms of damage, Diesel is 1 hit away, but it seems like the fight has separated. River on the side is going to get burned down. Now it seems like they're going systematically through a checklist. Who can they find? Who can they kill? Anybody on Gone to Tahiti left behind will fall down like their teammates. Lucky for them, they're just fast enough to get on out of there. But yeah, like you said, they just left open a Fire Giant with about 7 seconds before Quig respawns. He'll still be able to benefit from the buff.
Yeah, and I can tell they're going for the Fire Giant straight away. The second Wolves teleported back into this fight. Mando Warrior being juggled here. 1 health he lives on. Cope just heals up about 1/4 of his health there thanks to his mitigate wounds. I thought that's going to be enough for him. Chase around the corner, and Diesel provides a good peel with some nice DPS, but it's all just a distraction. Les by himself takes down the remaining health of the Fire Giant. The Hype Unit find themselves with 5 fire belts around their waist.
An easy facade for Hype Unit. They know that all they have to do is make sure that nobody on Gone to Tahiti looks towards that Fire Giant pit. Layers, at that point, I mean, relatively low. If you commit 1 person into the pit, potentially able to steal that away. So maybe just lapse in judgment. I mean, Gone to Tahiti, you don't typically expect the 1 assassin to be over there soloing it while your team's in a fight. And unfortunately for them, Hype Unit kind of read the bluff, still made the call, and now they're at the benefit, looking in for something in the jungle, whether it's going to be an ambush, a pick, what have you. And that Gold Fury is not up, or at this point it'll be a Primal Fury. It's not going to be up for another 2 minutes almost, so still just looking for anything they can find. Unfortunately, the answer is nothing over here from Hype Unit. So they're going to group up and try to use this Fire Giant maybe a little more to its maximum potential than what we got to see out of Gone to Tahiti.
So far, Hype Unit, well, they haven't really done much with their Fire Giant, but still has 2 minutes and 47 seconds remaining on it. 3 Tier 2 towers still remain. And if they're going to be as effective as possible with it, I expect all 3 towers to be gone by the time this Fire Giant buff wears off in 2.5 minutes' time. Just reset afterwards, look for the enhanced Fire Giant, just to make those Phoenix Sieges a lot easier for themselves.
It's all about timing at this point. They've got minions coming up with them. Quig getting aggressive. Layer's the only one not in the fight on the left-hand side as of right now. Mando once again going into the back line. We've seen this play a couple of times. Sometimes it works, and sometimes he just finds himself between 4 people shredding through his health bar. That 0, 6, and 4 was earned the hard way. And unfortunately, that's not been going too well for Tahiti. Layer's going to be able to just decimate that tower, no problem. He might even be able to get a Phoenix if they can keep everyone on Gone to Tahiti engaged over here, but that's going to be 4 backs like it's nothing, so Layers can fall back, and you wanted to see the towers fall. So far, 2 of them are going to be taken. Maybe a third here in the mid lane as Layers starts to turn his pressure over there. That gold lead that Hype Unit had it, Gone to Tahiti took it back, and now they've lost it again to Hype Unit, who have fully pulled it back in their favor. It is exactly like the graph indicates. That small little mountain was not too much to overcome for Hype Unit. Now they might even get a kill off of it.
No, Mana Warrior's going to be A-okay. And look, I know they're going for the pop culture reference with Gone to Tahiti, but you're a Smite team. Just make it Gone to Tahuti instead, so we can all stop mispronouncing the name in our minds.
Would definitely help, right? Just a little bit. But Tahiti,
yeah,
well, it's
just
a nice
little
place,
bit.
I guess, either way. But either way, they've been gone to Tahiti
Magical
for a
place.
little while. I wonder if they're ever going to come back. That's the real question. 'Cause right now, they're looking for a comeback. Whether that means they'll come back from Tahiti or not, we'll have to see. Quig up in the ults. We'll have to see who goes with them. Layers is not choosing to ride along. They dive deep into the mid lane. No towers for him, but they cut off the path. Cope looking to be the one that could burn down. 5 members surrounding the Hercules, but he's going to be able to driving strike his way on out of there. Agni bombs come ripping down onto this Hebo, and this time fire beats water. River's going to be the one who gets the kill for that. Wolves chased down, and the pack abandoned him this time, trying to run solo. And unfortunately, it's not going to work as well as it did at the beginning of the game. BDQ, Quig, the last 2 left in the jungle. Layers abandon the team to back off and heal up. BDQ's half health. Quig pretty much in the same boat. This penetration starting to rip true, but BDQ's hitting so hard back. I mean, look at the health bars. Sobs, Diesels, and Mando all low. And Layers has picked up a kill in the back line. Maybe able to capitalize on these low health bars if he can rotate back in, but Cope looking to do the exact same kind of play. Quig, maybe the target for the lockdown here. Might be the easiest one to kill off if they can get him, but they're not going to be able to chase him down in time. They pick up BDQ instead, and now Quig has nowhere left to run. Save for Layers, not going to be able to get his dash off in time, and now it's all up to this jungler. 6 seconds until Habwa respawns. Nehu is going to be enough to stop this team from aggressing, but to get rid of that Fire Giant, Enhanced is about to respawn. That's a good fight for Gone to Tahiti.
Yeah, the Fire Giant had gone from the rest of Hype Unit already. They just wanted that tower and then to get out, but all of a sudden they decide to take an engagement onto the mid lane. Don't find a target that land on. They surround Riveros, but don't decide to go onto Riveros originally. It was a messy engagement there from Hype Unit. Gone to Tahiti. Well, they've come back and from that magical place and find themselves with a win in that fight. And gives themselves time to set up for this Fire Giant, especially on ward coverage. Just put up those wards as best as possible. 10 seconds still till Quig respawns and BennyQ respawns on top of that. So you have the chance to burn it down before they both spawn and, spoil the party.
Well, the pressure's on for Wolves. He's the one who spots it out. He's the only one who can get in time to try and turn this around. Nehu might be able to rotate over for some scraps, but it's a question of trying to steal this Fire Giant that's going to come through. Damage is going to be good. Gone to Tahiti confirmed that one. Cope is low, and it looks like Gone to Tahiti recognize that they don't want to fight here. They just want to fall back and utilize this buff as best they can. 1 tier 2 tower still standing for Hype Unit. 3 Phoenixes to burn through, and they've got the minion pressure on their side as well. just because I'm highlighting it, Oni Fury going to come back up in about 2 minutes. Might as well look towards that if options for the Phoenixes fall apart. The world is their oyster once again for Gone to Tahiti, as control of this game just keeps flipping on its head.
Yeah, this is the sort of matchup I expected from these two teams. You know, second and third in the standings respectively, you would have expected them to have nice, tight, long games, but games 1 and 2 were anything but. It was basically control from Gone to Tahiti in game 1 very easily. Hype Unit then do the exact same thing in game number 2, but this time, both teams really doing a hot potato with the lead, just passing it from one person to the other as quickly as possible. Neither of them really want to hold on for the length of time that they want to do, but this could be the time where the potatoes cool down enough for them to hold on to it for the rest of the game.
We'll have to see if this game of hot potato continues. Maybe they can take it out of the tinfoil, open it. I guess it depends on the kind of potato. I'm assuming a baked potato, twice baked, because they're delicious. Either way, that's maybe just the hunger in me starting to speak. As we move forward, 16 kills to 17 kills on the one side, almost keeping up with that kill per minute mark still as they continue going. Almost tied in gold. All of it coming up into this culmination around the left-hand Phoenix. Damage there onto layers to start things off. Blink forward from Riveros and looking to burn down the mid laner Nehu. Looking to get chased, but it's not going to be enough. The ult going to be able to disengage the boulder, though, ripping through and allowing Rivers to find the kill onto Wolves. That 6-1 is turned to 6-4 so fast. Layers, unfortunately, in the same boat. 6-1 now to 7-4. The Phoenix goes down. 3 members left standing. Let's make that 2 as the Hebo goes down. Quig, Binniq, they're the only 2 left alive. They're looking to go up into the skies and come crashing down. Mando's low, and we've seen the damage Binniq can do, but is it going to be enough to stop 5 members with Fire Giant from killing your Titan? The answer seems to be no. They get 1 kill back, but the Titan just seems to be going. They end up with the deicide. They end up with the win. Gone to Tahiti, pull that one back and move themselves forward.
All it took was just one enhanced Fire Giant, and all of a sudden the Phoenix was a lot easier to kill because no backdoor protections, and the enemies were easy to kill because you have even more power for them. I mean, Hebo just didn't exist in that last fight. It is instantly taken away by the Raven, just blinked on, rooted, Prana Onslaught, and then all of a sudden there's nothing more he could do about it. Had to ult away, back to base, and I have no idea what happened to Wolves as well. I mean, King Arthur was yeah, I mean, he was a nightmare to deal with for the early game, but the last time I saw him, he just got dunked on by a Raven and he was dead.
Well, hey, congratulations to Gone to Tahiti, staying up in the upper bracket, but we'll still get to see more of Hype Unit as the day goes on. And hey, the good news is we've taken enough breaks today as things have been going, so we're just going to go straight back to the desk and have them break this one down.
Thank you, Gore and Alpha. Indeed, we are back on the desk, and a big victory there for Gone to Tahiti. Didn't look like it was going to go that way for the majority of the early game, though, Mifflin. It was a great start for Hype Unit in this one. Layers was popping off on the set. He was huge. For me, Cope changed the whole game. A massive boulder by Fire Giant, then a blink 2-man Earthbreaker right after the fact. I think Cope had a great game on this Hercules.
Yeah, right when that play happened, I looked out my window into the sky and I saw a cloud that just kind of looked like PBM, and it was certainly smiling, man. It feels bad for Hype Unit because of how strong that start was. Layers, as you said, pops off in the early, gets involved very quickly, some early kills in mid, is able to really transition it well. We see what is reflected on the enemy team. Sops has a much slower game. We saw him camp solo a little bit. Mando has a harder time as well. But it really came down to Diesel stepping up in a big way for them, finding huge damage in team fights, finding priority targets constantly. It seemed like for the most part, this Hachiman was allowed to free cast once both teams were stacked up 5 versus 5.
We had a lot of very polarizing ADC games today. This one, I think, was a little bit more even in the sense that both hunters were having their moments, but Diesel ends up being the star at the very end, and Gone to Tahiti punched their ticket to facing Baskin and the boys tomorrow. With how well Cope played that Hercules myth, why didn't he play it in the first 2 games? That's what I find myself asking. Like, they first pick a game 3 after not picking it at all in the previous games, and he pops off and carries the game. Maybe tomorrow he should be playing Hercules against Baskin and the boys, because that's who Gone to Tahiti will be playing up against. They are in the top half of the bracket. Froggy and Hype Unit will square off tomorrow as well, with the loser having their playoff dreams dashed. So it should be a fun one tomorrow in North America. Europe, going to be much of the same, I think, tomorrow, Meth.
Yeah, highly competitive sets in general, unless you're the best team in Europe. And you could probably say the same thing for Basket and the boys. It just seems like they're really separating themselves from the pack. Belt Slap up against Snake Pit, Pika Renewves coming against Poppies in the losers bracket. I think I really want to keep my eyes on that Poppies Pika Renewves lineup because both of these guys are incredibly talented teams. The Poppies are the only team in the EU League that has ever taken a game off of Belt Slap, not game set rather. So I think that they're likely going to be the favorites running through the losers bracket. There's a lot of interesting play coming our way.
Belt Slap versus Snake Pit is going to kick us off tomorrow, and then the Poppies up against Pika Renewves, as you mentioned. And as per usual, we do our first 2 sets ZU, second 2 sets RNA. So Basket and the boys square off against Gonza Tahiti afterwards tomorrow. So make sure you're joining us bright and early, 11 a.m. tomorrow in order to get us started. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for sharing your Friday with us. Appreciate you all, from everyone behind the scenes to make it work, all the casters, community casters involved. We'll see you tomorrow here for the playoffs. You can feature.
All of your wind has gone, and all of the paths you've drawn have sunk to the ocean sand where no one can see. You stand, don't let the dark embrace, cower the dreams you chase under the rust and blood. Don't let yourself give up. And all these steps that we take